Okay, we're good to go.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the first of two Zoom nights of bill hearings on local Montgomery County delegation bills. We have 10 pieces of legislation tonight, and then we're back a week from now for the remainder of the Montgomery County delegation bills. Just a reminder to our thousands of fans, our millions of fans watching on YouTube, this is just the start of a long process. After these bill hearings will be work sessions, including some in December that are posted on the Montgomery County delegation page website. And we'll have delegation meetings where we vote on these bills. And then for bills that proceed through the process, they'll go to the standing committees in the House for the full process there. A big thank you to Rebecca Stryer and Joseph Swit, who are taking care of all the logistics this evening. And just a reminder for folks who are coming to testify tonight, you'll only be let in from the Zoom wait room as we get to the bill in front of the one you're signed up to testify for. You can watch otherwise on the YouTube stream. And then after the bill you're here to testify for is complete, you'll be kicked out of the room, not because we don't love you, but just because we want to keep it manageable in here. And of course, everyone should be mindful of their camera and their mute button and all of those things that we've become very used to in this new age. Let me turn it over to my colleague from the Senate, Chair Zucker, for any opening comments.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm really pleased to be joined by my colleagues in the Montgomery County State Senate. I wanted to take an opportunity to thank the staff, thank you, and thank the members of the Montgomery County House delegation for their continued cooperation and assistance with sending us where people are with bills and just being very responsive. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. And with that, well, let's get started with the evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You have great Senate participation tonight, which we appreciate. It makes the process go smoother when we get to Annapolis. Just so everyone understands how this is going to work this evening, I'm going to hand it off to the various committee chairs for our local committees. Tonight we have bills from 3 committees, and each of those local committee chairs will run their own hearings. We'll start with the relatively new chair of the Economic Development Committee, Chair Lily Chi. And also just a reminder to my colleagues, if you have a question for one of the panelists, please use the raise hand function. So click on participants at the bottom of your screen, and the raise hand function should be all the way to the right, and then the chair of the committee will know to call on you. So with that, Chair Chi.
Thank you very much, Chairman Coleman. By the way, your audio is a little bit hard toward the end. I just want to point out that I don't know if it's on my end or if it's just your audio. But anyway, good evening. I'm going to start with MC 1121, Montgomery County Alcoholic Beverages Seating Requirements. I'm going to call on Amy Salmon and Kathy Durbin from Montgomery County Government.
Thank you. Good evening, Chairman Chi and members of the delegation. My name is Amy Saman, and I'm here on behalf of Montgomery County in support of MC 1121. This bill simply eliminates the minimum and maximum seating requirements for the community performing arts license. This license authorizes the sale of beer, wine, and liquor by the drink for on-premise consumption for performing arts facilities that are used for events ranging from weddings and art classes to live performances and theater productions. Under current law, the facility is required to have a minimum of 200 seats and a maximum of 1,499 in order to qualify for the license. The bill would eliminate this requirement and allow additional venues to have the opportunity to obtain this license. Currently, there are 2 facilities that hold this license, Biz Arts and Black Rock Center for the Arts. Removing the seating requirement in this license would allow large venues like Fillmore and Strathmore to obtain the license. Currently, these venues are required to obtain the large performing arts license, which allows for a much narrower set of events. The community arts license would offer these venues more flexibility as they start to expand the type of events that they sponsor and host. In addition, removing the minimum requirement would allow some smaller venues to obtain the license if they choose to. And Montgomery County supports this. Thank you.
Is Kathy Durbin going to testify?
Kathy Durbin's here to answer from Alcohol Beverage Services, is here to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, does anyone have any questions? Okay, I hope I didn't miss anyone.
I do.
All right, sorry, okay.
This is
Delegate
thank you. I just had the quick question that I always have when we come to these alcohol issues in terms of, is there something more that we can do so we're not just extending the same thing next year, or something else, or something broader that we can do in this situation?
So I'll let Kathy Durbin step in, but the large performance arts license, I believe, predated this license.
Yeah.
And that is why there are two licenses. This would streamline it, and should the holders of the large performing arts license obtain the community arts license, then we can come back and eliminate that larger license if, to streamline everything. But currently, because there are people holding it, we can't do both at the same time.
So that's correct. Thank you, Amy. It's just going to streamline the process. This will be the license that everybody wants because it's more flexible and allows the performing arts facilities to do more in the community.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to the next.
Delegate Shi, there's another question from Majority Leader Lukey.
I don't know why I didn't see it. Okay, sorry.
You open the participants tab and you'll see the blue hand next to his name.
That's what I tried to do. Okay. Okay, all right. Delegate Lutke, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm curious, just to follow up on that last. You said that we couldn't simultaneously expand the applicability of this license and eliminate the other license. Why can't we? Why can't we just add a line to the bill that says anybody that has this the large performing arts license just automatically gets folded into this license? Wouldn't that just make more sense instead of doing it in two pieces?
Yeah, I mean, I'll defer to Kathy. Yeah, the issue was really that they were holding it before, and I guess you'd have to see. I'll defer to Kathy on that one.
Yeah, so I'm sorry. Hi. So Delegate Lukey, it's a possibility. We already introduced this license to the Fillmore. They're very interested, but they haven't committed. I think they're contemplating applying for this license, and it would just be a downgrade. They wouldn't have to go even before the board at this point. So they just haven't given a definitive answer at this time. But we're trying.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? I'm not seeing any other hands. So thank you, Kathy and Amy. We're going to move on to the next panel. Next bill, MC 1221, Montgomery County Alcoholic Beverages Draft Beer for Off-Site Consumption in Damascus. I'm going to call on Chairman Craig Zucker, Senator Zucker.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Chair. Senator Craig Zucker here on behalf of Delegates Kaiser, Lukey, and Queen. In the interest of time and the importance of this legislation, Delegates Ann Kaiser, Eric Lukey, and Pam Queen asked me to present the bill on their behalf as well. Many years ago, a couple years ago, we had put in legislation that allowed the residents of Damascus to provide or allow alcohol to be served in restaurants there. They overwhelmingly supported it. And recently the team and myself reached out to some Damascus area businesses to see how they were doing in this era of COVID and during this global pandemic. And they said that based on the governor's executive order, they're currently able to fill growlers and crowlers. They had asked us if we could put something in last year to make that permanent. Unfortunately, it was during session, so we couldn't at that time. So prior to this session, we're going to go ahead and putting in MC 1221 that would allow them to continue filling growlers and crowlers. The Hornet's Nest says that currently they're filling growlers and crowlers, and it's made up. They've seen a 15% increase in their income just based on being able to fill growlers and crowlers. So with that, on behalf of myself, the three delegates, we ask for a favorable report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? I understand Molly Burns is just written testimony, so there'll be no other speakers. Any questions? Okay, I'm not seeing any. All right, thank you. Let's move on to the next bill, our last one from Economic Development Committee, which is MC 1721, Montgomery County Community Choice Energy Pilot Program. I'm going to call on Delegate Laura Charkudian and the first panel, which is County Executive Mark L. Rich, Councilmember Tom Hucker, Mayor of Tacoma Park Kate Stewart, and Maryland Consumer Rights Coalition Isadora Stern. Development Committee, which is MC 1721.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think somebody maybe is listening on YouTube and needs to also mute. Thank you, Madam Chair, and colleagues, members of the delegation. I am so excited to be here to talk to you about community choice energy. And so community choice energy, you've probably heard some about it. I'm going to give a quick overview and then I'll answer technical questions if folks have them. It's basically a tool for what I learned the term from NAACP calls the energy democracy. And the idea is to put more and more choices around our energy use into the hands of the people through elected democratic processes. In that context, it's a really important path that we can use in Montgomery County to both meet our greenhouse gas reduction goals, which I know you'll hear more from County Executive and County Council President, very exciting to say, Hucker, congratulations, in just a moment. But it's a path to get clean energy, not just clean energy, but also lower rates for ratepayers and to grow local jobs and the local economy in the clean energy field. Currently, 9 states have community choice aggregation enabled at the state level, and there are hundreds of CCEs across the country. And they have really demonstrated that it is possible to use this tool to lower rates for consumers and to do a balancing act of lowering rates while raising the renewable energy content. The basic model of what this bill does is right now, if you have Pepco or BG&E or Potomac Edison, the poles and the wires are owned by them. And unless you make a choice to go with a third-party supplier, you are automatically opted into the Pepco, BG&E, Potomac Edison energy supply decisions, the decisions they are making about energy supply. What happens if Montgomery County creates a community choice energy system is that the county would negotiate on behalf of 360,000 households for energy on behalf of everyone. And because it is an opt-out model, you've probably heard and seen this concept of opt-out versus opt-in. Because it is an opt-out model, it gives the county the leverage to be able to do that negotiation. And that is what allows the purchase of so much more, potentially close to 100% clean energy at a price that is still even below the current standard offer service. And that's what we've seen enabled across the country in other community choice energy. So that opt-out piece is a really important part of it. I want to talk for a second about opt-out and opt-in because you've probably heard about this. If you've heard from any opposition, this is the piece that they like to talk about. Right now, we have an opt-out model, and it's called Pepco. It's called BG&E. It's called Potomac Edison. If you do nothing, that's what you get. It's not that we're introducing the concept of opt-out in a new way in the CCE. It's just we're creating a new government agency that can serve as that opt-out. And so right now, what we have is an opt-out system, which is the monopoly investor-owned utilities answerable to shareholders. And this creates a different option, which is an opt-out, which is government, which is accountable to voters. So when you hear folks talk about opt-out as though it's a new concept, it's really important to have that understanding of we already have opt-out and there's nothing sort of preordained by a creator that suggests it ought to be investor-owned utility. This adds another choice to that mix. So what the bill does is it establishes a pilot project. If you may recall that last year I had a bill that enabled CCEs across the entire state where any local government could establish a CCE. This bill is essentially very similar to what passed out of the House last year. It enables a pilot project for Montgomery County to be able to establish a CCE if the county government chooses to do that. Before we get to that point, the Public Service Commission would go through a rulemaking process. Obviously, this involves very technical components, and so we need a regulatory system that it's going to operate within, and the bill has a lot of details, but still, even with those details, it leaves a lot to the Public Service Commission to design, and you'll see that the Public Service Commission will have a work group that includes representatives of many of the stakeholders and county government and the utilities to advise the Public Service Commission in this process. Once the PSC goes through that process, Montgomery County can do their own analysis and can choose whether or not to move forward. So there would still be quite a bit of additional public participation at that point, while the county government makes a decision about whether or not to move forward, and if they want to move forward, how they're going to do that. So this adds another layer of choice. There's no choice taken away from anybody. Right now, residents have the choice of Pepco, Potomac Edison, BG&E, whoever their automatic supplier is, or they can choose Clean Choice Energy, Direct Energy, Constellation, whoever they want. Now there would be another choice. So when you hear from some of the opposition that this somehow takes a choice away, you just need to ask, if we have X number of choices now, this is X plus 1. And there's really no world where X plus 1 is less choice than X is. So that's a question if anyone needs one for the opposition. So a couple other things that I want to highlight. Under the CCE, the investor-owned utilities would still manage all the poles and wires. So none of that would change. In some ways, a CCE is a hybrid between sort of a municipal utility and an investor-owned utility, because you have the investor-owned utility managing poles and wires, and you have the county government managing the decision-making about the purchase of the actual electrons that are serving folks. I will highlight that one or two other things that I just want to mention, that there are amendments that are attached to my testimony if folks are interested. They address some of the concerns that the utilities had raised. I believe Pepco and BG&E are at neutral on this bill now. They're not participating today, but because they did last year, we spent a lot of time with them over the summer. So you can see some of the amendments related to that. I want to just mention a few other things that I know are going to come up in the opposition. There's something that mentions a penalty for early exit fees. In fact, on page 13, you can see the section on fees, which restricts any fees except for the 3 areas that are listed there, and exit fees are not among them. So, there's no exit fees. There's other things that are sort of distracting or not fully accurate in some of the opposition you're going to hear. There's a reference to somehow an inequity of spreading accounts receivable across all of the ratepayers. Just so you know, that's current law. Currently, accounts receivable is spread across the ratepayers. What the bill says is if somehow the CCE's existence changes the way that that's spread, then the PSC is authorized to adjust that to make sure it's equitable. So I'm sharing this because it is a very technical bill. And I think those of you who have talked to me about it know that I'm enjoying this far too much. And I am happy to talk in much more detail about it if anybody wants to, but I am sharing that because I think on some of the technical bills, opposition will use the opportunity to make kind of obscure points that aren't fully accurate and to confuse folks. And so I really hope that if there's anyone who is concerned about any of the issues that are raised by opposition, that you would give me an opportunity to speak to them either here or at a later time, because I have looked at all the issues raised and everything is addressed in the bill. I will just say it is a shift in the way we do things in the state. It's been done in many other places, so we know it's doable, but it is a shift. And I think that the crisis that we see ourselves in right now, the crisis both of the climate crisis, the need to grow our local energy and our local economy, and also the need to protect ratepayers. I think that crisis, those crises are sufficient enough that it's time to really think very differently about how we do our energy. And this really gives the county a tool to do that. And I'm going to pass it off, and you'll hear now from county leadership about how they see this as a tool to do that.
Is County Executive Eldridge?
Now I'm unmuted. Can you hear me? Good. Thank you all for making this possible tonight. And I appreciate the opportunity to come here and testify. Before I get to the main bill, I want to just weigh in and let you know that I am supportive of 1121, 1221, 1721, 121, 221, and 10121 and 121, just for the record. But on to the main item. We all know that we're in the midst of a climate emergency, and it's not clearly getting any better. In Montgomery County, we declared a climate emergency, calling on all levels of government to initiate a massive climate mobilization to restore a safe climate and build a sustainable economy, and to transform the climate by reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 80% by 2027 and 100% by 2035, and to initiate large-scale efforts to remove excess carbon from the atmosphere. This is obviously a pretty tall order, and it's going to require a lot of work on our part. We have to take all possible steps to address climate change and to move to clean, renewable energy as quickly and as widely as possible. And this work must be done at every level of government and by the private sector. If Montgomery County is to meet our emission reduction targets, the electricity consumed in the county will need to be generated by 100% renewable resources. And we're talking about 27 or 35, or even if those targets were pushed to 2040, whenever you needed to arrive at that point, you can only do it at the point we get to 100% renewable resources. MC 1721 gives the county one important tool as we work towards eliminating greenhouse gas emissions. And it's a tool that encourages competition. The county could offer a large contract that would require clean energy at a reasonable price. I can't think of a better way for Montgomery County to encourage competition for clean energy. I think the opt-out provision is the right thing to do, and that it ought to become, if we go this direction, it ought to be the standard for Montgomery County to opt into this, to be a part of this program, because as I said before, it's the only way we'll be able to meet our clean energy goals. The community choice energy gives us a better chance to better control our fuel sources. We'll be able to negotiate with people, and one of the people we'll be negotiating with, I'm sure, are the current suppliers who are going to be loath to give up this share of the market and will likely begin to modify their own behaviors in order to keep the market. I can't imagine that we're going to be able to get this stuff done any other way. And it's a tool we really need. It gives us a chance to purchase and generate clean energy for as many residents and businesses as possible. And it also has the potential to lower rates for consumers. CCE is one of the actions identified in the county's forthcoming climate action plan that can significantly reduce county electricity-related emissions. With CCE, we think the county can move faster toward clean energy and toward lower rates for consumers. Thank you.
Councilmember Hucker, please.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Tom Hucker. I'm now the president of the Montgomery County Council. I'm pleasure to be with you all this evening. Good to see you. I wish we could see each other in person, but want to add the support of the County Council on behalf of my colleagues for the Community Choice Energy Bill 1721. Thanks to Delegate Charkoudian for her indefatigable advocacy for this bill. We on the council are very serious about fighting climate change. We know we need to take big steps, and this bill will allow us to do this. And frankly, we don't think we can really reach our climate goals without it. This is an idea we think that whose time has come. 8 other states have already enacted it. Massachusetts has had it since 1997. Virginia has it nearby. It's been very successful in California. And yesterday, the council unanimously voted to support it again. I know it's passed the House before. I'm eager to work with you all to help it get through the Senate. And the last thing I think that just hasn't been said is, while it's framed as an environmental bill, this bill really appeals to me as a consumer bill as well, because I think it can save our ratepayers a great amount of money on their utility bills. So thank you so much for your attention to this, and we urge a favorable report.
Councilmember Hucker, I meant to say congratulations, Council President Hucker, as of today. Big congratulations.
Delegate Xi. Very much appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, Mayor Kate Stewart.
Great. Thank you. I'm glad to be here today to add the City of Tacoma Park's voice in support of this bill being introduced by Delegate Charkoudian. I just want to reiterate what the county council, county executive said, that all levels of government need to be working on climate change. We are seeing the impacts of climate change in our city. The stormwater issues and other things are just really getting out of control for us for our local government. In Tacoma Park, we have made a commitment to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by 100% by 2035. In order to do that, we did a study over the last couple of years and hired the Cadmus Group to help us figure out what are the strategies that would be most impactful in helping us meet that goal. And at the top of the list was community choice energy. We were told that for us to really meet our climate change goals, we need to have tools like community choice energy in our toolbox to do that. So last year, we were very happy to support this bill. We're glad to see it back again as a pilot for Montgomery County. And we really just urge all of you to support it. So thank you very much. Have a nice evening.
Is the MCRC representative Isadora Stern here?
Yes. Hi, good evening, and thank you to the delegation and Delegate Charkoudian for having me here to speak in favor of MCR 1721. I'm Isadora Stern. I'm an organizer with the Maryland Consumer Rights Coalition. MCRC is a statewide coalition that works to advance financial inclusion and economic justice for Marylanders through research, advocacy, education, direct service, and organizing. I'm here to discuss how community choice aggregation impacts consumers, consumer protections, and why, as a consumer-based organization, we stand behind this model. We're here because this is a bill about energy equity, and economic equity is the lens we work through as we focus on the needs of low-income consumers across the state. Through our advocacy efforts and our direct service work with clients, we regularly discuss how to manage household budgets, and energy is a big part of that. I'm gonna throw a big number at you. 106,000 Maryland households devote between 36 and 42% of their income on energy, which is significant. And as my role as an organizer, I work with tenants who have talked to me about having to choose between feeding their families and turning on the heat. And these people are making $20,000 or less. So this is a matter of energy equity. And energy aggregation in other states has shown us that energy rates can be lowered. The data is showing us that communities that prioritize cutting the costs for ratepayers have saved between 15 and 20%. So this model helps low-income consumers. And when this bill came before the MGA last year, we contacted members of the Consumer Federation of America, which is comprised of 250 plus different consumer groups across the state. And we asked them what flags they were seeing around consumer protections in this model. And we heard that they are all behind this model. In fact, they're saying that by localizing these energy efforts, you are better able to engage the community and better meet its needs. So because this model can lower rates for consumers and it's working in other states, and because it can better reflect the local needs of the community, MCRC is in support of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we turn to the next panel, do any members have any questions for the first panel? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much. I'm going to read the next 5 panelists for all in favor of this bill. Lori McGilvray, Walter Weiss, Cecilia Plant, Shruti Bhatanaga, Joyce Bailey. If you could just follow one after another, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
Great. I guess I'll start. Thank you, Chair Chi and senators and delegates from Montgomery County for the opportunity to testify on the Montgomery County Community Choice Energy Pilot Program. My name is Lori McGilvray, and I'm representing the Tacoma Park Mobilization Environment Committee and many individuals and groups across Montgomery County and Maryland. While all these groups could have testified this evening, in the interest of your time, I attached a letter signed by 19 organizations to my written testimony, and I will list the organizations who were unable to be here to speak tonight. Food and Water Action, the Climate Mobilization Montgomery County Chapter, Environmental Justice Ministry, Cedar Lane Unitarian Universalist Church, Glen Echo Heights Mobilization, Sugarloaf Citizens Association, Biodiversity for a Livable Climate DC Chapter, Climate Law and Policy Project, MoCo Women, Nuclear Information and Resource Service, and Solar United Neighbors. Additionally, the NAACP is very supportive and submitted written testimony, but they were unable to be here this evening. So in short, we strongly urge you to support Delegate Charkoudian's Community Choice Energy or CCE bill, and I'll highlight 4 reasons why. First, we face the dual crises of economic inequality and climate change. We have less than a decade to avert the worst effects of climate change, like unprecedented flooding and heat, and low-income communities are disproportionately impacted by climate change, while they also pay 550% more as a percent of their income for electricity than other Marylanders. The county can use CCE to negotiate lower electricity rates for consumers, especially benefiting low-income residents. Second, CCE can rapidly transition us to affordable renewable energy and help the county make great strides towards meeting its greenhouse gas reduction goals, as you've heard from both the county executive and the council chair. It also can shift the electricity source quickly and overcome consumers' biggest barrier to switching to clean energy, which I know firsthand talking to neighbors and friends, that it's really confusing and time consuming. Third, CCE provides local control and choice over the source and type of electricity, essentially like a buying club, which my church can use now, but the county cannot. So by aggregating a lot of consumers, the county can purchase clean energy at significantly below SOS rate. And as you've heard, it also retains the choice, the opt-out choice to choose the utility or third-party supplier. Fourth and finally, it's the most cost-effective tool. Last year's fiscal note was low. The Public Service Commission can write the regulations within their existing budget, and the cost to Montgomery County would be affordable. So please support Community Choice Energy. It's an outstanding opportunity to meet the county's important equity and environmental goals. Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Walter Weiss. Thank you very much to the Montgomery County delegation for this opportunity to speak to you. I am talking tonight on behalf of the Montgomery County Faith Alliance for Climate Solutions. We are a group of people from 50 different congregations throughout Montgomery County of many faiths, but we are all brought together by a belief that climate change is really a moral issue that our faiths tell us that we have to work diligently against. We strongly support this bill because we do believe that it is essential to get Montgomery County on a path toward zero greenhouse gases. We feel that if we don't address climate change, we're going to be leaving a much harsher world to our children and grandchildren. I won't go into details. The other speakers have done this much better than I can, but we just urge you that the faith community is very much behind this, this bill. Thank you very much.
Good evening, and thank you for your time and for all the great work that you do for Montgomery County. My name is Cecilia Plant, and I am testifying as the co-chair of the Maryland Legislative Coalition in support of MC 1721 Community Choice Energy. The Legislative Coalition is a statewide coalition of grassroots groups and individual activists who support legislation that makes our state and our communities stronger and supports all of our residents. The coalition supported this bill last session, and we're back again to support it as a Montgomery County pilot. I would like to give you an idea of the support that this bill has in the county. Although they could not all be here, I am speaking for the many constituents who are part of our coalition who live in the county. Our member groups span across the county, and I'd like to mention a few of them, some of which are here tonight. The Montgomery Countryside Alliance in Barnesville, the Gaithersburg Huddle in Gaithersburg, the Women's Alliance for Democracy and Justice, as well as Only People Power in Olney, Do the Most Good in Rockville, Gaithersburg, and Aspen Hill, Our Revolution 350 MoCo and Indivisible Montgomery in Rockville, Gaithersburg, Bethesda, and Potomac, Kevin John Indivisible in Potomac, and Tacoma Park Mobilization and MoCo People Power in Tacoma Park and Silver Spring. All of our member groups are aware of the benefits of passing this legislation for those who live in Montgomery County. This is an exciting bill and a game changer for the county. It will allow Montgomery County to take a leadership role in fighting climate change in Maryland and also in negotiating for lower electric rates for county residents. We think this is a great bill, and we hope that you will support it during session. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Shruti Bhatnagar, and I'm chair of Sierra Club Montgomery County Group. On behalf of the Montgomery County Sierra Club and Maryland Sierra Club, I'm testifying today in support of MC 1721, which will establish a pilot program enabling Montgomery County to implement a community choice energy plan. The Community Choice Energy Bill will enable legislation to allow the Montgomery County government, if it so chooses, to pool the electricity demand of large numbers of residents to purchase electricity on residents' behalf from a source considered most favorable for and by the community. The county would decide upon the criteria for scheduling the electricity provider, example, the cost, type of source, especially clean or renewable, etc., but there are no mandates in this regard. The bill would retain the consumer's right to choose a different electricity provider than the one selected by the county government. The bill has several advantages to Montgomery County. CCE will provide a powerful tool for the county to meet the substantial clean energy requirement of its ambitious greenhouse gas reduction goals, provide a proven cost-effective mechanism to obtain large quantities of clean renewable energy through low-cost power purchase agreements. Most importantly, the CCE mechanism also virtually no demand on the public budget. This is especially important in this time when we know that revenues will be reduced. CCE also enables communities to have access to the low-cost, clean, renewable energy that large corporations like Amazon and Google and other large organizations like sports arenas are already getting. Compared to other states, electricity in Maryland is expensive. Energy bills are a major burden on struggling households. High energy bills often cause poor families to choose between keeping the lights on and paying for other essentials like school supplies or healthcare. CCE can specifically target reduced energy costs for low-income community members and for the value of that energy assistance. Beyond helping to meet our clean energy targets, CCE will also help develop the new green jobs and businesses that the clean energy transition promises. By piloting CCE in Maryland, the county can play a leadership role in developing a CCE model, which then may be expanded statewide. In conclusion, this bill provides multiple benefits to Montgomery County and to our taxpayers. It amplifies the consumer choice that electricity market deregulation is intended to provide, supports local government's role in serving their residents, promises lower costs for taxpayers, especially for households burdened by energy costs, and offers an important mechanism to move the county forward in green energy and green development goals. On behalf of Sierra Club, we urge the delegation to introduce this bill. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Joyce Bailey. I'm a constituent. I live in the town of Barnesville, which is in the Agricultural Reserve. And also I'm here representing the Montgomery Countryside Alliance in support of the CCE bill. After all of the fantastic testimony that has gone before me, let me just briefly add that here in the Ag Reserve, farmers' crops and livestock are suffering from this growing intensity of precipitation events, which are followed oftentimes by long periods of drought, the rising temperatures in the summer, and farmers are having to deal with the unpredictability of weather patterns due to climate change, particularly things like unusual late spring freezes, which kill off a lot of the stone fruits and damage young seedlings, vegetable seedlings. So those of us in Montgomery Countryside Alliance, we strongly support the passage of the CCE. So thank you for this opportunity to address you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the testimonies. Do any members have questions for this panel? Okay. Seeing none, I'm going to move on to the next panel of supporters. Olivia Bartlett, Jeffrey Weisner, Mike Tidwell, and George Ashford. Please follow one after another. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Olivia Bartlett, and I'm the Environment Lead for Do the Most Good Montgomery County. DTMG is a progressive grassroots organization with more than 2,000 members in communities throughout the county. We support legislation and activities that keep our members healthy and safe in a clean environment. So Do the Most Good strongly supports MC 1721, the Montgomery County Community Choice Energy Pilot Program, and urges all the members of the county delegation to support this bill enthusiastically. Despite having a deregulated electricity market, Maryland has really high electricity rates. MC 1721 will be good for the county consumers by allowing the county to aggregate electricity purchases on behalf of all county residents, and through the power of bulk purchasing, negotiate lower rates. 9 other states, some since the late 90s, have a similar enabling legislation and have CCE organizations that successfully serve millions of customers. The EPA found that electric rates for communities participating in CCEs were lowered by as much as 15 to 20%. And this would be a big win for all Montgomery County residents, particularly those in low and fixed income households. In addition, by implementing its aggregation authority under MC 1721, the county will be able to protect residents from being targeted by third-party suppliers who sometimes prey on low-income and elderly ratepayers and often charge rates that are higher than standard service rates. Importantly, MC 1721 will allow the county to address climate change, as already been mentioned, and make progress towards the climate emergency goals by allowing the county to negotiate more renewable energy than the current Maryland RPS. Changing to clean energy can be difficult, confusing, and time-consuming for consumers, and MC 1721 will alleviate these difficulties. And so will be an essential tool, as already been mentioned, for reducing greenhouse gas emissions in the county by the goal of 80% by 2027 and 100% by 2035. Finally, as Maryland's most populous and progressive county, we often lead the way for the rest of the state. Passage of MC 1721 and implementation of the pilot program here in Montgomery County will provide a blueprint for future efforts to establish CCE aggregation across Maryland. Baltimore, as well as Western Maryland and Eastern Shore counties with high percentages of low-income residents, would greatly benefit from also being able to form CCE aggregates in the future. So the county delegation supported the predecessor legislation, HB 561, which passed the House of Delegates in the last General Assembly session in 2020, and we hope that you will push for passage of MC 1721 as well. Thank you very much for the opportunity to testify.
Hello, senators and delegates. Thank you very much for your time. My name is Jeffrey Weisner. I'm the steering committee president of 350 Montgomery County. We are an organization with supporters and members throughout the entire width and breadth of the county, working on climate action and climate justice issues in the county. You've already heard from many of the other testifiers, experts, all the arguments for why CCE and this Bill 1721 is so important for our greenhouse gas emissions goals. As a organization, is one of the organizations that was in the initial coalition that fought to have our counties 80% by 2027 and 100% by 2030, 2035, excuse me, greenhouse gas emissions goals put into law via council resolution action. And when we look at those goals, we're always discussing in the county really three sectors. We're talking about energy, talking about transportation, and we're talking about buildings. Those are sort of the big three that we always are discussing when we look at how the county can meet those goals. Goals around transportation and legislation around transportation and around buildings issues are by nature multifaceted and complex. But in the energy area, with the adoption of MC 1721 and the CCE, the county could take one of these three very large sectors of emissions and make a dramatic change right away simply by enactment of a CCE policy for the county. So as an organization, we feel that passage of MC 1721 would be one of the single most important things that the county delegation and the state legislature could do to help the county meet its greenhouse gas emissions goals. And we strongly urge you to please give a favorable report and support this bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you. My name is Mike Tidwell. I am Executive Director of the Chesapeake Climate Action Network and our sister organization, CCAN Action Fund. I want to also congratulate Tom Hucker as our new Montgomery County Council President. Thank you, Delegate Chi, and thank you to my delegate, Lord Charkoudian, for fighting so hard to advance 1721, which we've all been discussing here. I have been working on clean energy issues in Montgomery County and Maryland for almost 20 years now. And as I look at the Zoom screen, and I'm pretty sure 100% of the elected officials at the county and state level, I have lobbied all of you at one time or another. I've been a pain in your neck on clean energy issues. And I just want to say amen to all the advocates and electeds who have expressed their support for 1721. And I just want to say, of all the bills and issues that I have bugged all of you elected officials about over the years, I think this may be the most important bill that you've got a chance to support, because it truly is a paradigm shift. It really gets down to the DNA level of how we as a county, and hopefully other counties in our state eventually, and other states in our nation, can take control of their own clean energy destiny. We've heard the urgency of this issue on this call. We've heard about farmers suffering from climate change in our county right now. I will say that in my neighborhood of Tacoma Park, we are seeing a massive die-off of some of our 100-year-old red and white oak trees in our urban tree canopy because of the extraordinary rains, followed by the periodic droughts, followed by beetle infestation. So we're seeing this everywhere. It's affecting us in our front yards. It's affecting us where we get our food. It's affecting all of us. And we have to start changing at that DNA level, the paradigm shift level. And that's why I want to thank again my delegate, Lord Charkoudian. And I want to thank all of you on this call who are supporting this bill. I urge a favorable report. Thank you.
George Ashford. Right.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Forgot the order. My name's George Ashford. I'm representing myself and the Tacoma Park Youth City Council, whose official testimony is attached as a written testimony to my own. And I'll thank you, of course, Delegate Chi and everyone else for being here and hearing what we all have to say. So last spring, I was lucky enough to participate in the creation of Tacoma Park's Climate Action Plan that our fantastic Mayor, Kate Stewart, alluded to earlier. As chair of the Tacoma Park Youth City Council at the time, I did my best to advocate for the interests of young people in that process. In this case, that meant pushing our city to make a stronger and more robust commitment to emissions reduction. I pushed for that because the science is very clear. If we continue on our current path, my generation will inherit a world that is harsher, poorer, and less stable than the one we have all grown up in. As the details of the city's climate plan were hammered out, I realized how limited the ability of a local government in Maryland actually is to reduce emissions. Cities and counties can incentivize the use of cleaner technology, but they can't change where our electricity comes from. And so they can't get to the root of the problem, like Mr. Tidwell said, which is that we generate our electricity in a fundamentally unsustainable way, burning fossil fuels. Across the country and around the world, at every level of government, including and especially local, there are young people fighting for their futures. In Maryland, we are inhibited by the reality of our laws regarding how people get their energy. There is no mechanism for local lawmakers and citizens that recognize how much is at stake, understand the necessity of meaningful substantive change to do the right thing and maximize the amount of electricity powering their cities and counties that comes from a renewable source. The fight to secure our climate stability is not one that my generation can afford to lose. This bill would empower those working to make positive change in their communities to strike at the heart of the climate issue in a way they are currently unable to. And for that reason, I and the 11 members of the Tacoma Park Youth City Council ask you to vote yes on MC 1721. Thank you.
Thank you very much for all of your testimonies. Any questions for this last panel in support of the bill before we turn to opposition panel? All right, seeing none, I'm going to turn to the panel in opposition. Nancy Calham and Kevin Carey. Is Nancy here? Nancy Calham or Kevin Carey? Are you here? All right. If not, then I assume we're done with the Economic Development Committee's Bill MC 1721. Thank you very much. Turning back to Chair Corman.
Thank you, Chair Chi, for navigating us through that. We will now turn to the bills of the Transportation, Land Use, and Public Safety Committee, chaired by Delegate Sarah Love.
Thank you, Chair Corman. Good evening, everyone. We are going to start with MC 121, Residential Property Sales School District Information. Delegate Moon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I see it's going to be a long night probably, so I will try to be as brief as possible. This is basically a reintroduction of a bill that we passed out of the County House and Senate delegation, I believe unanimously last year, and we ran out of time to run it through floor votes for the full process. So this year's bill, as with the amended version last year, all it does is warn county home buyers that school boundaries are subject to change. It doesn't specify the wording of the notice, and it does not invalidate a real estate contract if this notice is not included or not initialed. This was the process we went through with the input of stakeholders and realtors to get everyone into a consensus place. This was supposed to come with some voluntary changes from the realtors to further sort of give home buyers a better picture of what the school boundary situation is. But those were put on hold by the pandemic, so I'm hopeful that effort will also revive. And so with that, happy to answer any questions, but I think you know this one, so I hope for quick action on it.
Any questions for the sponsor? Okay, seeing none, we'll turn it over to the panel in this order. And as with the previous panels, please just go one right after the other. We'll start with Shruti Bhatnagar, Diana Conway, Michael DeLong, Dan Reed, and Sunil Dasgupta.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Shruti Bhatnagar, and I'm chair of Sierra Club Montgomery County Group. On behalf of nearly 6,000 Sierra Club members in Montgomery County, I'm speaking in favor of Bill MC0121. The Sierra Club believes that America's most critical environmental issue is climate change, and our most critical social issue is racial justice and equity. We strongly believe that our nation, our state, and our county need to address both issues together. Thus, the Sierra Club advocates for a future Montgomery County where neighborhoods offer a variety of housing choices, especially a variety of purchase prices and rent levels. In this manner, neighborhoods will better represent a cross-section of county residents. With integrated neighborhoods in terms of race, ethnicity, and economics, neighborhood schools also would be inclusive and equitable. Ultimately, we want the county to be a place where kids can walk or bike to equitable and diverse neighborhood schools. Bill MC0121 is a small but important step in the right direction. It ensures that home buyers have a heads up that school attendance boundaries are subject to change, which means that as home buyers continue to reside at their residence over a period of time, their kids may or may not attend K through 12, the schools which are assigned at the time the home is purchased. This type of transparency is good for community relations and promotes better understanding of how individual neighborhoods are part of the overall larger community which makes up our county. Thank you for your consideration of this bill, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to testify on behalf of Sierra Club.
Good evening, delegation members. My name is Diana Conway, president of the Women's Democratic Club in Montgomery County. Thanks for this opportunity, and thank you, Delegate Moon, for reintroducing MC121, Residential Property Sales School District Information. WDC fully supports this language in real estate contracts to inform prospective home buyers that they are not guaranteed assignment to a particular school. They're buying a house, they're not buying a school. This bill puts in place a more realistic expectation for buyers that school boundaries may be adjusted. And honestly, it's a little startling that this is not the case. A very entitled view of the way things run now. This bill is also needed as we approach possible boundary adjustments, specifically resulting from the Board of Education's decision to commission WXY boundary analysis. We know MCPS is not currently an equitable school system, and we know that current boundaries perpetuate inequities, like concentrating poverty in some schools adjacent to areas with much less poverty. Many of these boundaries are literally decades old, and the ossified system harms all children, but especially Black and Brown children, as documented for decades by the Century Foundation, the Urban Institute, and others. It's beyond dispute. MCPS's reluctance to adjust boundaries has resulted in a go-to preference for more portables and more additions instead of looking for existing capacity. It results in really a jaw-dropping situation. We have 26 elementary schools that are overutilized and yet are near underutilized schools. These should be the first off easy solutions, a practical approach, and MC 121 will move us in that direction. Instead of resorting to additions and portables at overcrowded schools, we urgently need to renovate schools like Eastern Middle School and Silver Spring, whose aging infrastructure was noticed in the MCPS budget, but got exactly $0. And we need to upgrade our HVAC and air cleaning in order to reopen facilities in a COVID world. WDC advocates for over 60 years on issues affecting women and their families. And this year especially, we are all in for viewing legislation like this bill through a racial social equity lens. Nothing is more foundational than access to a quality education. So we need this bill. On one hand, 3 decades of immovable school boundaries are enough. This expectation harms families, especially Black and Brown families, so we need the bill. On the other hand, even if no boundaries are moved following WXY analysis, new schools will still open and new boundaries will still be drawn, and homeowners around those schools need to be alerted they're buying a house, not a school, so we need the bill. By alerting homeowners to this, we also convey that they are buying into a system that aims to increase equity and justice and where children get a proper world-class education, regardless of what zip code their house is assigned. So on behalf of the Women's Democratic Club, thank you, Delegate Moon and co-sponsors, and WDC heartily supports MC 121. Thanks.
All right, dear members of the Montgomery County delegation, my name is Michael DeLong. Thank you for hearing my testimony. I'm a resident of Silver Spring, Maryland, have been active in local politics and advocacy for the past 5 years. I'm just here to testify in support of Delegate Moon's bill MC 0121, residential property sales and school district information. As Delegate Moon said, it's the same bill that was approved by the delegation last year. It requires all contracts for single-family homes in the county to include a notice that school boundaries designated for the property can be changed. People and families often purchase homes so they can be in a specific school district and have their kids attend a certain school. And the board right now, the Montgomery County Board of Education, is undertaking a big review of school boundaries, looking for areas in which they can make changes to reduce crowding, promote a racial and socioeconomic diversity and equity. A lot of homeowners and buyers don't know that school boundaries are subject to change. This bill will help inform people about this, raise awareness about this, and it doesn't change the fact that boundaries can change. That's already the case. And it also has the endorsement of the Greater Capital Area Association of Realtors. I hope you will support the bill, and thank you for hearing my testimony.
Good evening. My name is Dan Reed. I live in Silver Spring. My brother and I both graduated from MCPS, and my partner and I bought a home here last year. While my day job is as an urban planner, I also have a Maryland real estate license. I'm testifying in support of Bill MC 1-21. I testified in support of Delegate Moon's similar bill last year, and this bill looks like a good compromise. One thing I learned growing up in Montgomery County is the perceived hierarchy of so-called good and bad schools. Certain schools are treated like coveted brand names, and people feel that when they buy a home near those schools, they're entitled to access those schools. We all know that's not true. Montgomery can and should change school boundaries from time to time, but loud opposition from wealthy neighborhoods means that boundaries in some areas haven't changed in over 30 years. As a result, today our schools are segregated by class and race, our school buildings are poorly utilized, and many students aren't even attending the school closest to their home. Among real estate agents, Montgomery County is well known for its thick packet of disclosures that home buyers must sign, letting them know about everything from whether their home is in a historic district to whether there's a helicopter pad nearby. It is totally reasonable to remind homeowners that they're also buying a house, not a school, and that their school assignment can change in the future. It is one small step towards creating a school system that actually works for everyone. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. I don't believe Mr. Dasgupta is here, so we will go to questions. Any members have questions for this panel? Okay, seeing none, that ends the hearing on MC 121. Thank you, everyone. We will now move to MC 221, Montgomery County Speed Limits Establishment. Again, Delegate Moon. Floor is yours.
Thank you again, Madam Chair. I have the first two bill numbers I just want to point out, so I got these in early. So I am also pleased to reintroduce this bill. You should also find this familiar. Basically, this is a version of a bill we've also previously passed out of the delegation that had a simple goal of giving Montgomery County and its transportation and planning professional staff more control over speed limits on the county's own roads. So again, we've passed this twice before. This particular version would seek to lower the possible speed limit to 15 miles an hour in residential and business areas if it's justified by an investigation, and in an urban area at the discretion of the county professionals. So this is similar to the power that already exists near school zones, alleys, construction zones, and the county can lower the speeds to whatever it wants in urban areas right now. It just has to go through the study. So the trend is moving away from this. Last session, all of us passed a bill giving Calvert County the power to lower speed limits on Solomon's Island to 15 miles an hour without the traffic investigations. So we would be adding ourselves to that portion of law for urban parts of Montgomery County. And again, in past years, the testimony from the county planners and professionals has been, they're not going to willy-nilly drop this on roads. There are unique circumstance cases where there might be a senior center or a bike lane going in, or a narrow rural road, something like that, where this would enhance their ability to engineer a different community. And lastly, our neighbors in DC have done this as a pandemic reform and established 15-mile-an-hour zones to create a more pedestrian-friendly, bike-friendly environment in areas that they're trying to be sensitive to the need for more outdoor space. So just more examples of why I think we ought to trust our county's massive professional transportation staff to have this power. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Moon. Chair Barve?
Yeah, thank you, Delegate. I just have one question. Is this bill in the form it was in when it left the House of Delegates?
It is slightly different. The last time we did this, it was we did 20 miles. The advocates asked for 15 miles an hour. I put it in that way, and we had put in 20-mile-an-hour, I think, to try and appease non-Montgomery lawmakers who are no longer there. So we are taking it back.
Well, Delegate, all I can say is that in my committee, I'm encouraging the members to put the bills in exactly as they left the House, so that I can punch them out of the committee in the first week. So something to think about.
If that's the will, we should have that discussion. Okay, understood. Thank you.
Just as long as you're not punching your members of your committee, Chair Barve. Any other questions from the members? Okay, thank you. We will move on to the first panel. Mayor Kate Stewart, Councilmember Hans Remer, Jane Lyons, and B. Ditzler.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Delegate Moon, for putting this forward again. The City of Tacoma Park supports MC 2-21 with a recommendation for an amendment. The safety of adults and children who are walking, biking, and using micromobility devices is of utmost importance to the City of Tacoma Park. This bill would enable Montgomery County to lower the speed limit below the current standards, including to 15 miles per hour when needed. We support this in the city and ask that the bill include an amendment to allow municipalities within the county to make these decisions as well on our own roads. Research shows that lower speed limits can prevent crashes and save lives, especially when crashes involve our most vulnerable roadway users, people who are walking and biking. Lower speed limits are particularly important for young children and older adults. The National Capital Region Transportation Planning Board recently adopted a regional roadway safety policy that recommends actions that would help jurisdictions to reduce fatalities and serious injuries, which remain unacceptably high in our region. Based on a regional roadway safety study, one of these recommendations is to reduce unsafe vehicle speeds. For these reasons, we strongly support MC 2-21 with an amendment that would specify that Montgomery County and municipalities within the county be able to reduce the speed limit to as low as 15 miles per hour. This would be an important step towards prioritizing the safety of our most vulnerable roadway users. Thank you very much.
Should I begin, Delegate Love? Yep.
Please do.
Thanks. Well, good evening, everyone. It's really great to be here with you. Thank you so much. We've been working on this legislation for quite a few years. I looked it up, and it was 2016 when Delegate Moon and Delegate Corman and Delegate Lukey first proposed this legislation. And I really believe this is going to be the year. I see a great list of co-sponsors. Thank you to each of you, and the addition of a very important elected official here as well, Senator Smith, where I think we're going to need help on the Senate side. So really pleased by the group that has come together around this. The County Council strongly supports this, as does the executive. The basic idea is we need to be able to slow down neighborhood traffic and design roads that are designed for lower speeds. It's really speed that kills. If you get hit by a car going 15 miles an hour, you may well survive. If you get hit by one going 25 miles an hour, you may well not. That's the basic issue. And it should be a surprise. It certainly was to me that Montgomery County does not have the ability to lower road speeds below 25. And we need to be able to do that where appropriate. So We are all walkers. Most of us drive, most of us walk, many of us bike. We all have different choices at different times. And we need to have roads that work for us no matter how we're using them. So I think this is a really, really important piece of legislation. It's one of the top priorities for our Vision Zero strategy. And I'm hopeful we can move it quickly through the House as it has been moved before, and Senator Smith can help us there in the Senate, and we can get this done. So thank you so much. I really appreciate all of your support.
Good evening. Can you hear me? All right. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. My name is Jane Lyons, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Coalition for Smarter Growth. We are the leading organization in the DC region advocating for walkable, inclusive, transit-oriented communities as the most sustainable and equitable way to grow and provide opportunities for everybody. We urge you to support MC 221, which would allow Montgomery to lower speed limits on roads in urban districts. Speed limits could not be lower than 15 miles per hour. And we believe that this bill has the potential to save lives. So far this year, there have been over 2,000 crashes in Montgomery County involving injuries or fatalities. 14 pedestrians have been killed so far this year in 2020 in Montgomery County. These deaths were preventable. Additionally, in both 2018 and 2019, there were over 570 pedestrian and bicycle crashes in Montgomery. We are a long, long way from Vision Zero, but we need to use every tool at our disposal to get there. Research has shown that lowering speeds from 30 miles per hour to just 25 miles per hour can result in a nearly 30% decline in vehicles traveling over 35 miles per hour, or speeding essentially. Lower speeds reduce the risk of crashes and increases the likelihood of survival if a collision does occur. To speak from my personal experience, I live in downtown Silver Spring. All of my daily trips are made on foot. When I actually do leave the house these days, meaning that anytime that I go anywhere, my experience is characterized by dangerous roadways, such as East West Highway, Georgia Ave, Colesville Road. The speed limits on these roads don't go below 30 miles an hour, which gives me a 60% chance of survival should a car hit me, unless if it's an SUV or a pickup truck, whereas my chances would be much better at a 90% survival rate if the speed limit were at something like 20 miles per hour. But of course, lowering speed limits isn't enough. We must redesign roadways to match lower posted speeds, as well as enforce speed limits, which will be further addressed in MC 421. However, allowing for safer speeds is a major step in the right direction. Therefore, we urge you to support MC 221. Thank you so much.
Hello, I'm Barbara Ditzler, often known as B, and I'm here representing the League of Women Voters of Montgomery County in support of MC 221. The League, as you might know, has positions, and with these positions is the only way we can testify. So we have positions where we look at this and as one more tool in the road safety toolbox that we can use. So why should we do it? And that's really the question as to why is it important? And we all already know the District of Columbia has lowered the speed limit. So the basic speed limit is 20 miles per hour. And it's only if it's not posted at 20 can people go at a different speed and as the maximum speed. And so it makes sense that we should be able to have the opportunity to lower the speed limit if we choose to. We know that the pedestrian deaths in 2021 have already exceeded those in 2019. And that's clearly unacceptable. We know that the trend in the county is to encourage greater numbers of pedestrians, bicyclists, any type of transit, but we can't really do that if we have speed limits that are inappropriate to what we expect. As the county becomes more densely populated, we think that effective evaluation measures and changes should be made available. And we think that this bill clearly has that opportunity to be able to change where it needs to be changed. No matter how anyone travels, everyone is a pedestrian. And we like to think of this as being a pedestrian-friendly bill. Thank you very much. And we hope that you support this bill.
Thank you to the members of this panel. Do the members of the delegation have any questions? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to the next panel for MC 221. Shruti Bhatnagar, Christy Daphnis, Allison Gillespie, Miriam Schoenbaum, and Emmanuel Wagner. Please follow one right after the other.
Thank you, Delegate Love. Good evening. My name is Shruti Bhatnagar and I'm Chair of Sierra Club Montgomery County Group. The Sierra Club supports MC 221, which would allow the county to decrease the maximum speed limit in the county from 25 miles per hour to not less than 15 miles per hour on highways in and outside urban districts when certain conditions are met. We live in a car-centric culture where transportation planning, road infrastructure, and vehicle laws have historically been focused on enabling vehicles to get to their destinations as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, this has resulted in unnecessarily high rates of injury and deaths for bicyclists and pedestrians, as well as vehicle drivers and passengers. Research shows that a vehicle's rate of speed has a direct impact on the ability to see ahead and notice people in or near the roadway, how quickly one can respond to avoid potential problems, how long it takes to stop a vehicle, and how likely someone will die as a result of a car collision. Authorizing the county to lower speed limits where needed would bring a number of benefits in addition to improving safety and reducing traffic fatalities and serious injuries. Lower speed limits would encourage more biking and walking, which has health benefits. Lower speed limits also would enable the county to implement smart growth policies and fight climate change by creating more walkable, bikeable, transit-oriented communities where residents don't even need to own a car to get to where they need to go. Lowering speed limits also a key component of Vision Zero, a program Montgomery County has adopted aimed at eliminating traffic fatalities and serious injuries for all road users. It's doubtful that the program can succeed unless speed limits can be lowered as MC 221 specifies. In summary, this bill makes sense for our county, our residents, and our environment. We encourage the delegation to support MC 221 and will commit to testifying in support of the bill in Annapolis if it is introduced there. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to testify on behalf of Sierra Club.
Is Christy Daphnis here?
I actually started talking, but I didn't had it on mute. Sorry.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Christy Daphnis. I'm chair of the Montgomery County Pedestrian, Bicycle, and Traffic Safety Advisory Committee. While I'm chair of that committee tonight, I'm testifying as an individual, though I am near certain that I'll have final approval to support this bill formally if it moves forward into Annapolis. 2020 has been a terrible year in Montgomery County in many ways for many people. But not just because of COVID, also because of the number of preventable traffic deaths. In 2020, we've had 14 pedestrian and 2 bicyclist fatalities. This is a few more than the typical county average in recent years, and we've not yet faced the dark month of December. One major factor contributing to many of these deaths is speed. Speeding is a constant problem both on state highways and on county roadways. The county and SHA has worked together to lower speed along certain corridors, but progress on some of our roadways is currently hampered by state law. On November 23rd, the U.S. Department of Transportation issued its first ever pedestrian safety action plan. In this plan, DOT highlights the effect of speed on crash survivability. If a person is hit by a vehicle traveling at 23 miles per hour, the pedestrian has a 10% risk of death. At 42 miles per hour, a 50% risk of death. In fact, commenters from across the country agreed that jurisdictions need to do a better job of setting speed limits, designing roadways to encourage lower speeds, and approve laws and regulations that include the use of speed cameras and other interventions. These themes ring true in Montgomery County as well. On our county roadways, we're currently not able to reduce the speed to 23 miles per hour or even lower, even in areas where the context and land use would warrant a lower speed. For this reason, I joined the county executive, the county council, the Montgomery County Council of PTAs, and others in support of MC 2-21. This bill will ultimately enable Montgomery County to put in place safer speed management practices on our roadways, allowing us to normalize lower speeds where warranted, particularly in residential areas, urban cores, and around schools. It is beyond time for us to be able to do so. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. My name is Allison Gillespie, and I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of the Montgomery County Council of Parent-Teacher Associations in support of MC 221. I serve as the chair of the Safe Routes to School Committee. MCCPTA has tried hard to tackle the problem of getting kids to school safely and back home again. And honestly, it should not be as hard as it has become in this county to do that, nor should it be so risky for kids to walk to and from school or even to and from their school buses. If we're really trying to support healthy lifestyles for all of our kids, we'd be working hard to ensure they can walk all kinds of places safely and bike safely too. Not only would that enable our kids to get more exercise, it would enable us to perhaps tackle the problem that seems somewhat overwhelming of climate change. We know, after all, that transportation is one of the biggest contributing factors to that problem. But right now, a large number of people feel it is simply not safe to let their kids walk due to traffic speed. They can't walk to school, and many families feel that they must drive their kids just a short distance of 1 or 2 blocks. They don't feel that it's safe for their kids to even wait at a bus stop. And given some of the terrible crashes that have involved students waiting at stops, including a crash actually, I think it was 3 years ago now, that landed 3 high school students in the hospital for weeks, I can't say I always disagree. As you know, MCPS has a total of 206 schools and 162,680 students this year. When I began working on the Safe Routes to School Committee, I was shocked to find out how universal the problem of dangerous high-speed traffic was. In almost every corner of the county, rural, suburban, and urban, families have come forward to offer stories of near misses, or worse, come forward to share their tragic stories of loss or injury. One of the saddest, most depressing meetings I ever had to attend was the debriefing last year on the 2 students hit in December. There was the small elementary school student who was killed, and then a few days later, the high school student who was almost killed on our roads. I will never, ever forget sitting in the little room up in Carver as we were shown maps and told every grisly, horrible detail of each crash. Speed is a preventable problem and a solvable problem. A lot of people have given data tonight. I'm gonna, in the interest of short, let that stand, but I will point out that even though it's a universal problem, many of our most vulnerable families face the most dangerous crashes. Data shows that many of our Black and Brown families, because of where they live, due to historic patterns of exploited development and zoning, and partly due to patterns of affordable housing currently available, are in areas with the highest speeds. So our most vulnerable populations are facing speed as a very big problem. Parents have asked us again and again, can we reduce the speed on the routes their kids take to school? And this bill would finally allow us to be able to do that. It would put another tool in the toolbox. Far too many roads where kids are walking very close to schools.
I'm sorry, Gillespie, can you wrap up?
Yeah, I was just gonna, I think I can stop there actually, because I think Christy covered my data. But we do support this bill, and we will work, as Shruti said, we'll be happy to testify in favor of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Miriam Schoenbaum.
Yeah, hi, I'm Miriam Schoenbaum. I'm with the Action Committee for Transit, but I'm testifying for myself tonight. I'm an advocate for safer streets, and I'm here to support MC 221. I'd like to refer you to my written testimony, which has pictures of some streets in my part of the county in Clarksburg and Germantown. Just pictures where people are indicating that they want safer streets in the streets that they live on. You see this all over the county, little high-vis plastic people with flags, signs in the yard that say slow down, signs in the yard that say drive like your kids live here. Of course, if you're driving fast, you can't see those signs. You can only see them if you're driving slowly or if you're walking or biking. I have a lot of these pictures. I only picked these ones this set of 6. In any case, the point is that people all over the county want the slower streets that Delegate Moon's bill would make possible, and that is why I urge you to support the bill.
All right, dear Montgomery County delegation, thank you, senators and delegates, for your time. My name is Emmanuel Wagner, and I'm active in transportation and traffic calming activities. I do urge you to support Delegate Moon's bill MC 221, and I will make this short since there's such strong support from the panelists giving testimony. Being able to adjust the speed limit in the county to below the current minimum of 25 miles per hour, especially in urban areas, will allow local jurisdictions to help manage traffic better, and in these times of increased pedestrian traffic, allow for safer roads for all. Many residential streets in my area do not have sidewalks. That means all residents that are walking or riding their bikes in the neighborhood have to constantly navigate the dangers from cars cutting through our neighborhood that do so to avoid nearby congested streets. That is especially true for families with young kids and elderly residents. And it takes a lot less roadway to stop from driving at 15 miles per hour than from 25 miles per hour when a kid runs into the road. The current solution to avoid that is to add high speed bumps and stop signs where residents request so. It is a flawed approach as it aggravates drivers to slow down and speed up, but it also increases fuel consumption and thus greenhouse gas emissions of cars that have to slow down for speed bumps and then accelerate. So a lower speed limit that doesn't require speed bumps has environmental benefits. For most of my life, I've lived in areas where the speed limit in residential areas was much lower than 25 miles per hour. So it is possible. And I was personally surprised to see such a high speed limit in the state of Maryland. In addition, since speed limit violations are only enforced when the driver exceeds the speed limit by 12 miles per hour or more, the driver could technically go over residential streets at a speed of 36 miles per hour without being fined. So I hope you can support Delegate Moon's bill to allow for the minimum speed limit of 15 miles per hour. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you all for your testimony. Do any members have questions for this panel? Seeing none, that concludes the hearing for MC 221. We will now move to MC 421, Montgomery County Speed Monitoring Systems Implementing Agency. Delegate Stewart.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, everyone. For the record, I'm Vaughn Stewart, here to testify in favor of MC 421. I'd like to just briefly thank my co-sponsors and particularly thank Delegates Carr and Crutchfield for their work on this bill. So MC 421 is very simple. It would authorize Montgomery County to transfer authority over the traffic safety camera program from the Montgomery County Police Department to the Montgomery County Department of Transportation. The Montgomery County Council is seeking this authority to evaluate the potential transfer of authority and whether it would be beneficial for the county or not. And the County Council, when it voted last week, unanimously endorsed this bill, and the county executive also supports the bill. And the county leaders really are interested in reviewing this and evaluating this idea for two pretty simple reasons. One is basically amounts to organizational efficiency. Housing speed enforcement within the Department of Transportation is consistent with basically its existing portfolio. The Transportation Department already is in charge of traffic management and transportation planning. It already administers the Vision Zero program. And so automated speed enforcement would represent, as we've heard in the previous bill, basically another tool in their pedestrian safety toolbox. And it would also allow the agency to integrate its current mission with the speed camera program to improve road design. For example, right now, with the Department of Transportation not controlling where the speed cameras go up, it's harder for them to use data from the speed cameras to inform their efforts to improve the physical structure of roads to make them safer for all road users, for drivers and for pedestrians alike. And this additional kind of organizational efficiency point is why Mayor Bowser in DC recently transferred their automated enforcement program to DC's Department of Transportation. And I'm not going to bore you with a ton of statistics, but we know that automated enforcement regimes reduce traffic accidents and fatalities. There are all sorts of numbers about how much they improve safety and how many fewer traffic crashes you have and how many fewer fatalities you have. The second reason that really has kind of come to the fore in this calendar year that the county is looking to us to give them the authority to do this is that this traffic cameras and red light cameras and everything, they could be strategically and more aggressively placed to yield fewer unnecessary traffic stops. So there's a ton of evidence that I'm sure a lot of folks are aware of that law enforcement traffic stops disproportionately target Black and brown motorists. And even after controlling for multiple possible confounding factors, the bias persists. And most tellingly, there was a study that this bias is less apparent at night when it's harder for police officers to see what drivers look like. And so the hope, the county's hope, is that a more aggressive automated enforcement regime, while it would, of course wouldn't eliminate traffic stops, would reduce the necessity of having them in their propensity. And so, basically transferring the authority would likely result, at least hopefully in the county's view, to a more consistent, fair, and comprehensive enforcement of all of our traffic laws. So this is, to sum up, basically a reform that many other cities are pursuing. It's pretty simple, common sense step to allow the county government to increase department efficiency in the name of public safety. So I urge a favorable report from the delegation. And I know that I have a lot of folks interested in the bill, which I'm very excited about. I think we have almost 20 in support. I have reminded all of them gently to, of course, make their support heard loud and clear, but while we're being also respectful for everyone's time in case there's a lot of repetition and duplicative testimony. There's no opposition to the bill that you'll be hearing from tonight. So I hope that we can be judicious with everyone's time. Thanks again.
Thank you, Delegate Stewart. Are there any questions for the sponsor? Okay, seeing none, we will go to the first panel, which will be Councilmember Hans Riemer, Seth Grimes, Allison Gillespie, and Jane Lyons.
Thank you so much. Delegate Stewart said it so well, so I won't repeat what he said. I'll just add, I think we have an important opportunity here to provide national leadership in both public safety, racial justice, and Vision Zero. All of these go together, and this initiative has a lot of eyes on it. It's part of a national movement, I think, and Montgomery County wants to provide that leadership as well. And we need your support to do it. And really appreciate the strong interest from our colleagues. And thank you, Delegate Stewart and Delegate Carr, Delegate Crutchfield, Acevero, and everyone. Really appreciate your giving us a chance to make you proud and do something here that will move the ball forward on Vision Zero and racial justice.
Is Seth Grimes here?
Yes, thank you, Sarah. I'm Seth Grimes, speaking on behalf of Tacoma Park Mobilization. We support MC 421. Mobilization is an advocacy organization with over 2,100 followers, active in climate action and environmental concerns, immigration, police and justice reform, economic equity. You've heard from other TP Mob members in support of community choice energy. We anticipate working with you during the 2021 legislative session on matters that include policing, for instance, repeal of the Law Enforcement Officers Bill of Rights, and elimination of the school resource officer programs, a Trust Act, Immigration Data Sharing, and Dignity Not Detention Act. We're pleased to support Councilmember Riemer and his colleagues by backing MC 421. Montgomery County should have the option to move automated traffic enforcement to the County Department of Transportation, both as a matter of principle. Racial justice disparities, as noted in traffic enforcement, call for careful examination of moving all civil enforcement out of the police department, and also as a near-term step toward enabling a comprehensive re-examination of authority and the use of automated technologies for traffic enforcement. We do wish that MC 421 could be extended to allow Montgomery County municipalities, Rockville, Gaithersburg, and Tacoma Park all have their own speed cameras, to move their own automated traffic enforcement to a city department of their choice. But the Maryland Constitution doesn't allow exceptional treatment of a subset of state municipalities. So we do support the bill in its current state. Please do move MC 421 forward. Thank you.
Hello, here I am again, Allison Gillespie, to speak on behalf of the Montgomery County Council of PTAs as the chair of the Safe Routes to School Committee. I'm going to keep this very short. We are very much in support of MC 421. Many parents have inquired about the possibility of expanding the speed camera program in the county, especially near schools. And many have asked if it would be possible to expand the number of red light cameras currently in the county. We support the exploring this option. I don't think I could say it any better than Delegate Stewart and Councilmember Reamer did. I think they were both incredibly eloquent and captured all of those thoughts really well. We do feel like DOT, we partner with them quite a bit, and we believe that as the transportation department, they are well equipped to use data in this way. And I think Delegate Stewart's point that they are the decision makers about a lot of transportation issues is well made. We also feel that it should not even be limited to speed cameras, but should also include the red light cameras and even school bus cameras. That's it. I'm going to keep it short so everyone can get an early night. Thanks.
Good evening again. My name is Jane Lyons, and again, I'm speaking on behalf of the Coalition for Smarter Growth. We urge you to support MC 421. Automated enforcement is already a great tool to objectively enforce traffic laws without biases, and allowing MCDOT to implement speed monitoring systems can further move traffic enforcement into civilian hands. It can also help the transportation agency more quickly identify and make design changes to certain locations to address safety issues. Black and brown residents are disproportionately likely to be pulled over, receive a citation, and to have police force used against them during a traffic stop. This does not result in safer streets, rather the opposite. It stokes distrust among community members and law enforcement. And MC 421 is one step in the right direction to take police out of traffic enforcement and focus more on automated systems, safe design, and preventative actions to reduce traffic violations, as well as eliminate traffic injuries and fatalities. Therefore, we urge you to support MC 421. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, for your testimony. Do any members have questions for this panel? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to the next panel in support. Joe Spielberger, Joseph Reinhardt, Reverend Segun Adebayo, and Rian Adamian.
Good evening, Madam Chair and delegation members. For the record, my name is Joe Spielberger. I'm the Public Policy Counsel for the ACLU of Maryland, here in support of MC 421. So MC 421 might be a simple bill, but I think it's a really important bill, especially in this moment as we're reimagining what policing looks like and how we can better allocate local resources while still keeping communities safe. And traffic stops are a prime contender for this type of intervention for reform precisely because they're the most common police encounter. So under the Supreme Court case, Wren versus United States, pretextual stops are constitutional just as long as an officer has or is able to identify some kind of actual violation of traffic law, regardless of the officer's motivations. So as a result, officers have this enormous discretion to pull someone over, issue them a ticket, search their vehicle, and potentially escalate the encounter. Delegate Stewart, highlighted the race disparities that we've seen both statewide and certainly in Montgomery County. And because policing is inherently coercive and officers are trained to approach any traffic stop as a potential ambush, it means that every time that an officer pulls someone over, it just increases the chances for violence. So we need to focus on minimizing the amount of interaction that people have, writ large with law enforcement officers. Because we champion liberty and individual freedom, we should do everything we can to limit their power that they have over all of our lives. And that means breaking down police departments into their core functions so that they're only dispatched to respond to situations that no one else is reasonably capable of responding to. So, we think this bill will have an immediate impact to help better protect Montgomery County residents. And it's also a really important step in this moment toward addressing some of the larger police reform goals as well. So, yeah, we certainly urge a favorable report on this bill. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you, everyone. My name is Joe Reinhardt, and I'm here tonight to voice support for MC 4-21 on behalf of Montgomery County's Young People for Progress, or YPP. We are a community organizing and social justice organization of young people in Montgomery County that strive to create power among youth and young adults. Over the past year, YPP has focused on bringing systemic changes to policing in Montgomery County, and we're very pleased to support MC 4-21 as a good first step to making some of those changes on the way to reimagining policing in the county and state. We've all watched over the year the racial turmoil all across our country stemming from acts of police violence. There are just too many to cite in 2020 alone. All too often, we have seen over and over again that Montgomery County suffers from many of the same underlying issues around policing and racial justice. The issue of race during traffic enforcement continues to be a glaring example of inequality in our policing system. The county's own Office of Legislative Oversight noted that Black residents accounted for 32% of Montgomery County Police Department traffic stops in 2018 and 55% of MCPD use of force cases. Black citizens make up just 18% of our county's population. These trends have continued into 2020 despite seemingly greater awareness of this issue and countless promises by the police to do better. It has not gotten better, and the data and personal experiences of too many Black and brown members of our community proves this. We know that moving the county's automated traffic enforcement will likely make only a small impact on these numbers. And we know that there are many other changes we need to make, but we believe this is a move in alignment with our push for greater justice in our police system and with national trends to move such programs under non-police oversight. As mentioned, major cities, including DC, have already made similar changes in the name of better policing and smarter governance. In addition to being a small piece of the racial justice efforts, we recognize that allowing the county to move automated traffic enforcement under the Department of Transportation better aligns to the county's Vision Zero efforts to make our roads safer for all drivers, pedestrians, and bicyclists. We see MC 4-21 as a great example where more efficient government and more equitable policing practices align, and urge the members to allow Montgomery County the authority to manage traffic safety and enforcement as the county deems best for its citizens. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Reverend Shegun Adebayo. I'm the pastor of the Massachusetts Baptist Church in Bethesda, Maryland. And I want to thank Councilmember Hans Riemer for his leadership on this very important bill, and to thank all members of our delegation, for all the, wonderful work that you do. I speak on behalf of our congregation in support of, MC 4-21 to remove certain enforcement functions from the police department. We believe that the use of the police to enforce, traffic regulation exposes our members of our community to danger and unnecessary contact that sometimes results in unwanted and unpleasant consequences. Statistics have shown that there is disturbing racial bias in traffic enforcement by the police in our county, and indeed, within our state. For example, while Black people constitute a small proportion of our county population, we are disproportionately stopped and cited, often without any justification. I have a personal interest in this. Our son, while he was in college, was subjected to unwarranted, numerous stops. Driving, from Silver Spring, sometimes to PG County, for such flimsy excuses as rolling stop and then subjected to unlawful search and harassment. The repeated experiences, were traumatizing, to our son and to our family. None of these encounters that he had with the police ever resulted in any citation. They were simply unjustified and unlawful. Simply arrogant display of power. It feels like this was just a sport, for these police, men and women. More Black people are likely to be pulled over and issue citations. Instead of engendering public safety, these interactions, with the Black community create distrust and hostility, towards, law enforcement that are paid by taxpayers to protect all people. In a state where the prison population is made up of mostly Black bodies, traffic enforcement is another entry point to the pipeline to prison. We must do all within our power, to limit and to seal all entry points into the prison pipeline for the Black community. Following centuries of racial injustice, we as people, we have endured, enough pain and family upheaval. This is simply an issue of racial equity. Even for grown-ups, the sight of police is often unwelcome. I believe the police will have more time to focus on their core responsibilities if they are freed, from enforcing traffic violations. However, it makes sense to involve the police when there's extreme threat to public peace and safety. The issue of vehicular speeding and running of red lights should and can be monitored by technology.
Reverend, my apologies, but your time is up. Could you please wrap up?
Okay, so I do urge, our delegates to please support the bill. Thank you.
Hello, I believe it is my turn to testify. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak. For the record, my name is Rina Damian, and I'm proud to testify on behalf of the Bethesda African Cemetery Coalition in support of Bill MC 421 this evening. The goal of traffic enforcement is to make streets and highways safer, but keeping oversight of traffic enforcement with police departments does the opposite. Like all of the police's functions, traffic enforcement is a site of racist violence against Black and Brown communities. While traffic rules apply to all motorists, police officers as humans have the discretion of who they stop and for what. And in a society based on systemic racism, this means that traffic enforcement by police officers is not actually traffic enforcement. It is a license for them, regardless of who is violating traffic rules, to stop motorists and to exact what they see fit as punishment. This can be assault, this can be psychological violence, and this can be death. And in the case of Black and Brown drivers, a mistake or being pulled over for an arbitrary reason that is not actually a violation of any traffic rules can be a death sentence. And this violence needs to end. In Montgomery County, police searched the vehicles of Black drivers more than twice as much as those of white drivers, and were more likely to cite probable cause if the drivers were Black. I would also like to echo the statistics and the facts, the lived experiences and the histories shared by the previous speakers, in particular by Reverend Segun Adebayo. We know that there is no justice in this country for the Black lives lost to police violence, and like traffic violations and speeding, oversight of traffic enforcement by police officers makes our streets and highways more dangerous. So what we're trying to stop here is any necessary death or harm to our community, and that is exactly what is being exacted by police officers. A traffic violation, again, it can be a death sentence if you are Black or Brown and you are driving. This is something we must do every day. This is inhumane, it is racist, and it is absolutely nonsensical. Bill MC 421 should be enacted to disable this mode of terrorism by law enforcement. As cited previously by officials familiar with the Department of Transportation, successful traffic enforcement does not require human enforcement, and it certainly does not require someone with a weapon to enforce the rules. This bill is necessary to keep Montgomery County's streets and highways safe and do keep our community safe. Please stop the violence and enact this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any members have questions for this panel? Seeing none, we will move to the next panel. Devora Stavisky, Christy Duffness, Abby Koosman, and Peter Gray. Please just go one right after the other.
Hi, good evening. My name is Devora Stavisky. I am testifying as a community organizer with Jews United for Justice, which mobilizes almost 6,000 community members across Maryland to advocate for issues of racial and economic justice. JUFJ, along with many of our Montgomery County partners, supports MC 421. Jewish tradition teaches us that it is not up to us to complete the work of creating a completely just world, but neither are we free to desist from it. When we hear story after story, statistic after statistic shared tonight about the harm faced by Black and Brown residents at the hands of law enforcement officers who are responsible for traffic enforcement, it then becomes clear that changing the responsibility for traffic enforcement from police officers to the Department of Transportation becomes a really important first step towards rectifying, right, these harms, these injustices that we've heard of, and creating a safer world for all drivers, pedestrians, and bikers. By allowing Montgomery County to move speed regulation to the Department of Transportation, MC 421 is a first step towards creating a safer system for everyone. I'll defer to those who spoke before me and shared statistics. Those are also in my written testimony if you'd like to review any. I also just want to end by thanking Delegate Stewart for his leadership in sponsoring this legislation. It's a common sense measure that will make traffic enforcement in Montgomery County more efficient, safer, and more just. There's much work to be done to eradicate racially biased stops of Black Americans by police in our county, but this bill is a very important step, and we therefore urge you to support MC 421. Thank you.
Hi, Christy Daphnis again. First, I'd like to commend Delegate Stewart and Councilmember Reamer for their leadership on this important issue. I am also testifying in support of MC 421 with one potential amendment to extend this bill to red light cameras and school bus cameras, which I don't believe it covers at the moment. This bill allows the county additional options surrounding its automated enforcement program. It's really important to note that MC 421 would enable the county to transfer the administration of its speed camera program from MCPD to MCDOT, but does not require its transfer. This is currently an issue that the county council is exploring, as Councilmember Reamer mentioned. And should they determine that a transfer or expansion of the program is warranted, state law should not be the barrier to this action. The county should be able to have the flexibility to make these decisions in how the speed camera program is managed. Baltimore City is currently operating its automated enforcement program out of its transportation department, as is DC, which was mentioned earlier. So this action would not be unprecedented. And while this approach might be different than the current approach, MCDOT is well equipped to use data to inform the placement and monitoring of the automated enforcement program, and the county should be given that flexibility for it to do so. This bill should not be limited to speed cameras, as I mentioned early, but should also extend to red light cameras and school bus cameras. And that is all that I have. I'll keep this very short. Thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Hi, I think I'm next. I'm Abby Koosman, and I'm testifying on behalf of the local climate and social justice organization, Sunrise Silver Spring. I'll keep it short because folks have already shared a lot of really moving statistics about the racial inequity in police traffic enforcement. And have already shared a lot of great arguments for moving the responsibility of that enforcement. But I'll just say that at Sunrise Silver Spring, we strongly believe in moving resources away from police programs and towards safer, more effective, and less biased programs that can do more good for our community and that are less rooted in systems of oppression. So we are urging the county to move traffic enforcement out of the hands of the police and move responsibility to the Department of Transportation, as well as investing in greater automated traffic safety systems and, of course, in safer street design. We know that it's possible to create safer roads and a safer city without relying on the police department, and we urge the state to allow the county to use its resources to invest in solutions that will make its people feel safe and protected instead of targeted and harassed. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Peter Gray, and I am testifying on behalf of the Washington Area Bicyclist Association. It's 1,500 members and thousands of other supporters who live in Montgomery County. You've heard the arguments. I will just sort of go back to the main two. One, it makes sense to put this matter of automated traffic enforcement under the same aegis of the agency that is both creating and in charge of implementing the Vision Zero program. This will greatly help that program go forward by putting that all under one house. There's a lot of data, some of which I cite in my testimony, showing the disproportionate impact on communities of color by traffic stops. It's clear that taking the police out of at least the automated enforcement is a step forward towards reducing that amount of friction. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for your efficiency. I appreciate that. Seeing no questions from the members, we will move on to the final panel of supporters. Lily Byrne, Sean Robertson, Frank Fritz, and Sora Edwards-Throw.
Hi everyone, my name is Lily Byrne and I'm here tonight representing United Students Against Sweatshops at the University of Maryland. We're a student organization that mobilizes students around issues of labor justice and social and economic justice. We represent a diverse group of UMD graduates and undergraduate students and student workers, many of whom are from Montgomery County and all of whom use Montgomery County roads to drive to and from our homes, schools, and places of work. We are strongly in favor of MC 421. And we would like to reiterate what has already been said tonight about this impactful legislation. By changing jurisdiction for speed regulation to the Department of Transportation, Montgomery County can begin the work to eradicate racist traffic policies in our community. I encourage you to refer to our written testimony as well for more information. And I also just want to thank you for your time tonight.
Hi, my name is Sean Robertson. I'm testifying on behalf of Action Committee for Transit. Act Strong supports MC 421, placing responsibility for validating photo enforcement citations with the County Department of Transportation will improve the effectiveness of our Vision Zero efforts by placing real-time information with the agency responsible for engineering and educational efforts that are also needed to make our roads safer. Civilian control of automated traffic violation enforcement may also serve to encourage its expansion. On a personal level, I live on a stretch of Connecticut Avenue right out here, in Kensington, where several recent high-speed crashes have seriously injured pedestrians standing on the sidewalk. And while lower speed limits and road design are critical factors for speed enforcement is also essential. And I consistently see the brake lights as motorists slow below the 47 mile per hour threshold for the speed camera just down the street across from Delegate Carr's home. So enforcement works, but other speakers have clearly illustrated the downside of increasing policing traffic stops. Current practices result in Black drivers being stopped twice as often for traffic violations as others and are often subject to problematic interactions. This must change, but should not be an excuse to put bicyclists, pedestrians, and transit users at risk. So expanded use of impartial automated enforcement managed by MCDOT employees instead of police officers will allow law enforcement to put more resources into non-routine, non-traffic related policing. I'd like to thank Delegate Shetty for organizing a recent Zoom meeting to discuss solutions for Connecticut Avenue, but it's crazy that our town would have to hire a sworn police officer just to sign speed camera citations. There's no reason that kind of responsibility shouldn't rest with MCDOT. So Delegate Stewart's bill would have important community and racial equity benefits while allowing for the enforcement we need to provide safer streets for all Montgomery County residents. So thank you so much.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Frank Santos Fritz. I am chair of Montgomery County Democratic Socialists of America. I'm a labor organizer and community activist in downtown Silver Spring. I'll start my testimony as we start all DSA meetings by acknowledging that we are on the ancestral lands of the Piscataway Indian tribe, the rightful past, present, and future inhabitants of this land. I would also like to acknowledge that this county, this state, and this country were built with the stolen labor of enslaved African people, and that's why we are here today to discuss racial equity and racial justice in our county and in our state. I applaud the introduction of Bill 421. I actually previously worked in the for a labor union that represents the employees of automated traffic enforcement within the police department. My anecdotal experience, I can say that it would be very equipped to be transferred over to DOT. I'm just going to say that this year has challenged every level of government to re-examine the systems that have created our systems of mass incarceration, and that this is one innovation that actually moves us in the right direction towards addressing those inequities. I really do think it is critical that we look at ways to reduce pretextual stops, but we also consider that police stops are often the side effect of disinvestment in our communities, and that is nowhere clearer than the disinvestment we see in the Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority, with massive cuts being proposed to our bus and metro system, which is going to force more drivers onto the road, many of those drivers unable to afford, a fully functioning vehicle. Or able to get timely repairs, making them more subject to pretextual stops, further exacerbating the racial justice issue and further increasing those cycles of disinvestment and mass incarceration. I applaud the county executive and the county council for endorsing this bill, and I support their amendment that they proposed. They encourage to include red light cameras and automated traffic enforcement for school buses as well. With that, I want to echo all the previous testimony. I urge quick passage of this legislation with the amendments noted by the county executive and the county council. And I'd like to thank you for your time and consideration of this important legislation and of my testimony. Thank you so much.
Sora Edwards-Thoreau.
Hi, I heard about this through Bethesda African Cemetery Coalition, but I'm speaking as an individual. I'm glad we've been centering the impact on Black and Brown communities in all the testimonies tonight. When my family was dealing with getting pulled over, that wasn't a layer we had to navigate. My mom would often be thinking in the back of her head, if I get a ticket at this time, what meals am I going to have to skip? What shifts am I going to have to pick up to be able to afford it? And that calculation is hard to make under the best of conditions. It's much harder to make when you've got an officer at your window and your kids in the back seat. So when I was reading for this bill, the first thing that came into my mind was just any measure we can take to remove stress, remove terror, and remove humiliation from these difficult decisions that working class families have to make all the time. We should go ahead and do it. So I'm very supportive of this bill and grateful to those who introduced it.
Great, thank you. Again, seeing no questions from the members, that concludes the hearing on MC 421. Chair Corman, I turn it back to you.
Thank you, Chair Love. Congratulations to you and Chair Chi on overseeing your first bill hearings. And with that, we'll turn it over to the Metro Washington Committee chaired by Vice Chair of the full delegation, Al Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have 4 bills from the Metropolitan Washington Committee. For the second of these bills is actually my bill. So for that bill, I'm going to turn the gavel over to Delegate Charkoudian, who is the Vice Chair of the Metropolitan Washington Committee. We're going to start with MCPG 100-21, WSSC video streaming and archiving, and late payment charges, which is sponsored by Delegate Charkoudian.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chair. So hello again. Couple of key things that we're trying to do with this bill. The first half of it is about transparency. So all of you know, and you have had and you have supported, and I thank you for that support, other bills that have required live streaming of meetings in the past. And I think in the past, we've really seen this as a broader transparency and accessibility issue, bodies that are making really important decisions for our constituents' lives, our constituents, and we ought to be able to see how that decision-making is happening. And so there's been both local bodies that we have required to live stream all of their meetings. And then last year, I believe it was Delegate Chair Corman's bill that required the Stadium Authority, State Board of Elections, Emergency Numbers System, Public Service Commission, and FTA, and others to live stream their meetings. So this is a direction that I think we're headed in. It strengthens without having the sort of penalties that come with the Open Meetings Act in terms of making decisions invalid. It does still strengthen the ability of the transparency and the ability for participation. I think what we've seen during COVID is just how possible this is. While I'm certainly looking forward to having meetings again in person, I think there's some learnings that we've had from this process that highlight that we can make things transparent and accessible. So the WSSC is one of those bodies that has on a voluntary basis moved many of, and I would say probably the majority of their meetings to being streamed live and recorded on their website. However, not all meetings are, and there have been some times where it started as a streamed live meeting. They've gone into executive session, which is of course a closed meeting, but then the second half hasn't been live streamed. And there's been some decisions that have been made in those times that that have been questioned by folks subsequently. So they've clearly demonstrated their willingness, their interest in moving in this direction, and their ability to do so. And so this bill really codifies that we expect all of their meetings to be live streamed. WSSC has raised two concerns in response to the draft. One was related to the fact that sometimes they have teleconference meetings, especially potentially in emergency decisions, but just in general, it might be teleconference. And so I have one amendment that I have shared with all of you that clarifies that if it's a teleconference, and it's the teleconference, not necessarily a video, that gets streamed. And the second concern that was raised was that because they're dealing with public health issues, if there were to be some public health sort of a crisis and a need for an emergency meeting, and there were to be technical problems or glitches with the Zoom or the WebEx or whatever it is that they use, that they wouldn't want to be kept from moving forward and having that meeting. So there's another amendment that basically clarifies that should there be legitimate technical issues and a need to move forward with the meeting, that it wouldn't be in violation of this law. So both of those seem to address the broader issues that have been raised by WSSC. So hopefully that takes care of that, and we can kind of move WSSC along with these others and continue to make all of the decision-making more transparent and accountable to our constituents. The second thing that is in the same bill is a shift from the late fee being a required 5% late fee to a cap of a 5% late fee. So this issue came up when we were looking at, I've been spent a lot of time along with many of you looking at how do we help our constituents pay all their bills this year in this crisis, in particular utility bills, concerns about cutoffs of utilities when moratoriums end. And in looking at late fees across the state and the statutes around late fees, what I found was that almost every statute has a cap on a late fee. So it's 1.5%, or it's 5%, or it's even 10% in the case of some water utilities, but everything in statute is a cap. There's no place where we actually require it has to be 5%, it has to be 1.5%. And so what that does is it sort of puts both the accountability, but also the flexibility on the governing body, in this case, the commission, to really look at financial situations and figure out, and if it's possible to lower that late fee, to do so. but it doesn't force them to lower the late fee. So right now, the commission has the capability to waive the late fee in certain circumstances, and they have, especially right now during the COVID period. But it doesn't give them an option besides 5% and 0. And so this just adds that flexibility by changing it from a required 5% to a up to 5%. It also makes it consistent with all of the other late fees in the system. And I would just highlight, I have had some conversations about this one with WSSC. You'll hear from them soon. And I think that they may point to the fact that other utilities other water utilities have higher late fees. And this isn't about forcing a lower late fee. I just want to clarify, it's about establishing it as a cap instead of a requirement, because it is important to me that if it were possible for them to lower it, then it ought to be lower. If they feel like they can't meet their budgets without lowering it, then they still would have the prerogative to keep it at 5%. So with that, I'll close and open it up for questions.
All right. Do we have any questions of the sponsor? Seeing none, our first panel of supporting witnesses is Peggy Dennis, Nancy Wallace, Molly Hauk, and Catherine Katzen. Please go ahead and proceed in that order. Thank you.
Am I heard? I've tried to.
Peggy.
Okay, thank you. My name is Peggy Dennis, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Montgomery County Civic Federation as chair of the Legislation Committee. The MCCF represents over 150,000 households from civic and homeowners associations across the county. The Civic Federation Executive Committee strongly supports Bill MC/PG 100-21, increasing transparency and providing increased flexibility on late fee amounts. Just as the Civic Federation advocated for and very much appreciates our Montgomery County delegation streaming your live meetings in Annapolis, so we also believe that WSSC should be streaming live video of all of the open meetings of its commission, and that they should maintain a complete and unedited archived video recording of each meeting on the website. A link to the meetings should be located easily on the website. One shouldn't have to spend a lot of time searching in order to find these important documents. While we appreciate that WSSC streams most meetings now, there have been instances where the commission returned from closed session but did not provide a recording of the proceedings. Delegate Charkoudian mentioned this. During one of those unrecorded sessions, they discussed plans to spend nearly $1 million on, quote, rebranding, unquote, this public utility, which is a monopoly serving both counties. The Montgomery County Planning Board, part of another bi-county commission, has a budget of $165 million and manages to stream live video and archive of all of their meetings. WSSC, with an annual operating budget of $850 million, an annual capital budget of over $600 million, should be able to manage recording and archiving all open meetings so that taxpayers and your constituents can view the proceedings and stay informed. We also support making the 5% late fee a cap rather than a mandatory amount, so that flexibility is provided to the commission on the criteria for charging that fee. Washington Gas and Pepco both have late fees of 1.5%, and flexibility is very important, particularly during this time of pandemic and the economic difficulties that so many people find they're in. So we ask for a favorable report on this important bill, and thank you for your consideration.
Good evening. I'm Nancy Wallace, co-chair of the Montgomery County Green Party. We're testifying in favor of MCPG 100-21. With respect to the live streaming, we would like to point out that we think that a single comprehensive link between the live stream requirement and the archive requirement, which I'll note later was extremely important, is is the only way to bring true meaning to the Open Meetings Act. And as Peggy and others have said, this is a wonderful silver lining to the COVID situation, that the requirement to live stream can open up these meetings to tens of thousands of people that would not be able to participate otherwise. And this also includes people such as the handicapped, elderly, and the blind who would not be able to go to the meetings. So this is a very excellent practice, increasing the transparency of WSSC, which of course the Green Party strongly supports, and it should be a permanent requirement. And we note that the minutes taken by WSSC are, of course, they could virtually not be a transcription, but WSSC's minutes are notoriously sparse. There is no recording of any questions asked by the commissioners or their responses, and the minutes will always, no matter what the intention now or for the next few years, they will always be written at the discretion of the WSSC recorder and staff. And we have found through extensive research that by Natalie Rosser, that the archives show, as Peggy mentioned, that it was in the non-streamed portion after these executive sessions where staff would bring up the controversial portions. Many of us have had extensive dealings with the WSSC over the past 3 years, and we have not found that the commitment to engagement and transparency is the top priority of the staff. We have, with respect to the fee issue, we would like to support not only giving WSSC the flexibility to charge up to 5%, but we question why it should be 5% in the first place when our electric and utilities are 1.5%. The Public Service Commission, why is there such a difference in terms of the governance? I think there are really profound governance issues raised by other questions we are dealing with WSSC on. And this transparency and fee issue seems to be part of that larger concern that we would like to increase the engagement, participation, and oversight by the community of our water and sewer utility. Thank you.
Molly?
I support this bill because transparency is badly needed at WSSC, and there's no valid reason to oppose it. As an opponent of WSSC proposed smart meters for the past 3 years, I've found that WSSC often does not work in the public's interest. It does what the management wants, and the managers hide decisions and practices that might not be acceptable to the public. It is very telling that management recommended that the commission oppose this bill. Greater transparency benefits workers. The public is unaware of many anti-worker policies at WSSC, such as the lack of hazard pay, proper clothing, PPE, and certain job classifications being underpaid relative to their regional peers. Workers need many more protections and much better pay. WSSC overspends on consultants and top management salaries and underspends on worker pay and protections. An example of this is the management's wasteful rebranding campaign, which was primarily discussed and presented during the non-streamed segments of the Commission open sessions in 2018-19. So it's not archived on the WSSC website. And Natalie Rosser discovered this because she's a great investigator. These meetings took place in the back room where it's more difficult for the public to observe. It just changed the picture on the trucks. So it cost ratepayers $1 million and didn't benefit us at all. It just changed the picture on the trucks so it looks less like a Washington Gas logo. Money spent on rebranding could have been used to pay the workers better or provide proper equipment for them, and could have prevented the huge rate increase that WSSC is asking for now. I encourage the Montgomery County and Prince George's County councils to work closely together to protect WSSC's workers and ratepayers. There's a great need for oversight.
My name is Catherine Katzen. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to testify tonight, also in support of MCPG Bill 100-21. I support this bill because it will increase transparency at WSSC by requiring that open commission meetings be video streamed and archived. I echo what the previous testifiers have said, that this is critical to make sure that the public, especially in this era of COVID, is able to be actively informed about the decisions that the WSSC is making. It's also very critical because of the way that it will cap the late payment fees that ratepayers can be required to pay. For these reasons, and to protect the health and the welfare of our ratepayers in both counties, to protect the rights of the workers, and to maintain the affordability of water, please vote to support MCPG Bill 100-21. Thank you.
Any questions of this panel? Seeing none. Our next panel of supporters is Deborah Vollmer, Robert Janku, and Natalie Rosser. Please go ahead and speak in that order. Deborah, you're on mute. We can't hear you. Deborah, you need to unmute yourself so that we can hear your testimony.
My name's Deborah Vollmer, and I first became aware of this issue when I heard that not Pepco, WSSC wanted to roll out smart meters in their infrastructure. I have concerns about smart meters because of radiation issues. I go by the precautionary principle, and also privacy issues. But the thing is, they wanted to roll this out, and a lot of people were concerned and didn't want this. And so this bill, I understand it's water. It has to do with water and none of the other utilities, water. But it has to do with procedures that relate to the institution of fees, and it has to do with what the WSSC would do in terms of infrastructure. And this, so that it was a smart meter thing, but it's broader than that. I mean, the water company, it's almost like an arm. It's almost like an arm of government, and we need transparency so that consumers can see what is what and what's going into the decision-making process. It's so basic to our way of governing that we have transparency. So I support this bill for that reason. And also with regard to the late fees, I understand the bill provides flexibility so that the late fee wouldn't have to be as high as 5%, that actually WSSC could in certain circumstances have less of a fee. And so it provides more flexibility that way. And I think that's a good, anytime you can reduce late fees, I think that's good for the consumer. I guess I really don't have any more to say. I strongly support this bill.
Okay, you're on, Robert.
Robert Janku here. I live in District 15. I'm strongly in favor of 121. This is a much needed first step in bringing more oversight to WSSC. WSSC's water rates are twice that of Fairfax Water. The commissioners' meeting is divided into an open video stream morning session, a closed early afternoon session, and an open but unstreamed late afternoon session which I hear is held in a hard-to-access back room. During the streaming meetings, citizens question staff's 100 million AMI cost estimate. Commissioners ask staff to update estimates. Staff revised the cost to 208 million. After hearing numerous complaints from citizens, WSSC commissioners suspended AMI meter project. This bill is about adopting open meeting rules to the present way we consume information. We no longer have local papers who could afford to send reporters to a meeting in person. We rely on small activist groups to put the word out on what organizations like WSSC is doing. The use of video conferencing during the pandemic proves the WSSC staff arguments about cost and complexity are bunk. Anyone with a cell phone can stream a meeting to YouTube. For a backup, a second cell phone can be used. Thank you.
Natalie?
Natalie Rosser, good evening. I attest and affirm that the following statements are true, accurate, and within my personal knowledge. I support Bill MC/PG 100-21. The requirement to live stream open meeting provision aims to codify WSSC's current practices. In light of COVID-19 restrictions, this bill will continue to enable active and thorough ratepayer participation in the event the building is closed to the public or building occupancy is limited to facilitate social distancing. WSSC currently uses Microsoft Teams to conduct, stream, and record its open meetings. The same technology can be used to live stream last-minute emergency meetings that tend to occur by telephone. It is incredulous that they have the confidence to successfully implement a $200 million high-tech smart meter project, yet they claim that a legal requirement to live stream will be a burden or a hardship. There were few meetings during 2018 and 2019 where the rebranding initiative was discussed. Those conversations occurred during the non-streamed or non-recorded segments of the commission open session. Hence, the public has no knowledge of what transpired and the discussions are not archived. As a ratepayer who closely followed and actively opposed their smart meter project, having access to live streamed and archived videos was crucial to my participation. The provision to change a late payment up to 5% does not dictate how they govern their fees. Rather, it provides them the option to choose something different. Given that 1, the state legislator has an oversight role, 2, a series of enacted bills requiring specific agencies to exceed requirements of the Open Meeting Act already exist. 3, the Open Meeting Act does not explicitly require streaming. 4, WSSC's failure to archive open sessions of commission meetings in their entirety for years. And 5, the impact of COVID-19 on ratepayers' ability to physically attend meetings. It is entirely appropriate to have a bill that ensures full transparency for a government agency funded by ratepayer dollars. Bearing in mind WSSC's steady track record of live streaming and posting archived videos, this bill is reasonable and does not adversely impact their operations. I have presented no matter of mere concern or any other non-substantive matter, but solely matters of substance, of fact, and law. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for this panel? Seeing none, we will now move to the panel of opponents. Karen Riley from WSSC, and we also have Amanda Kahn and Guy Andes, who are signed up informational.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of time to address some of the misstatements that I have heard from some of the supporters, but I will try to address this legislation in 2 parts since they're a little bit different from one another. First, as mentioned, we have discussed our concerns with the bill sponsors who's positioning this proposed legislation as one of transparency. I want to emphasize that our opposition is not because we don't want to be transparent. We actually already go above and beyond what the Open Meetings Act requires. Our meetings are archived back to 2013. Our minutes are archived back to 2007. In fact, when we first heard about this bill, it was because Delegate Carr said he was introducing it to codify what we already were doing. Our apprehension hinges on the prospective situations where we may not be able to live stream because we can't access the equipment for either audio or video live streaming because of a technology failure, which everyone points out we're using in COVID. And I'm sure many of us have been the victims of technology failing. Or in worst case, and our biggest concern, in an emergency situation, it was referenced that we use Teams, we actually use Granicus to stream. And if our system is down, we may not be able to access that. And when we take emergency actions, we're under a time deadline, and it has an impact on the public health of 2 million people. So we take that very, very seriously. In fact, our general counsel, who's actually on the call tonight and is available for questions, has general concerns that some of the actions taken in violation of this proposed legislation could be nullified and have a negative impact. The bill sponsor has provided a number of amendments, including a set that we received this afternoon that we're still reviewing, but they lead to more questions such as if there's a bona fide technology failure, what constitutes a technology failure? Who makes that determination? So we do have a number of questions about some of the amendments. We're being asked right now to identify all the potential scenarios and address them through amendments, as the Open Meetings Act addresses our concerns and balances the articulated goal of having transparency for our meetings. I do respectfully ask you to consider our real anxieties around some of the concerns about emergency meetings and things of that nature. And I remind you all that the Flint water crisis that we continue to hear about is a result of a failure to foresee events and administrative actions that were taken to try to prevent them. As far as the second part of this legislation, bill sponsor states that she wants to give us flexibility with our late fees. When adopting the position to oppose this, our commissioners pointed out that they are charged with governing and setting the rates, and they've never asked for this flexibility. Currently, customers can waive the late fee once every 12 months. We have legislation for our customer affordability program, which you all granted us in 2015, that allows us to waive the late fees. And this is a good balance for us right now to be able to make those determinations. I know that the delegates and bill sponsors and supporters point out that we shouldn't look at other water utilities. We're at 5%. Almost every other water utility in our jurisdiction is at 10%. We are not the same as the regulated utilities under the Public Service Commission, and it's incorrect when you say 1.5% for them. It's 1.5% all the way up to 5%. Depending on when the bill is paid and how late the bill is paid. Yes, I'm sorry.
Conclude your remarks, please.
Yes, I'm trying to. It's two different subjects, so I'm trying to get through them. I do want to point out that we do have a passion. We have the most robust affordability program in the state for water utility. We are currently still suspending our late fees and shutoffs. We receive no funding for our affordability from either the state, the county, or federal government. So the fees are meant to be a deterrent, not a hindrance. So we do ask that you all consider opposing this bill. Thank you.
Are there any questions for this witness? Okay, seeing none, that concludes the hearing.
Vice Chair, there are a number of questions for the witness, including.
Oh, I'm sorry, I cannot see them. All right, let me find the hands here. All right, we have a question from Delegate Lutke.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Riley, there was an issue raised earlier in testimony about advanced meter infrastructure and some of the and concerns about transparency around that. Could you address those?
Yes, I'm actually very surprised to hear that. I know that the sponsors in testimony were those members who opposed AMI, but we went out of our way to make sure that any opposition was heard. Our commissioners were very purposeful and seeking out. Our communications director would email the people on the list to let them know when there was an opportunity and when the subject matter was going to be heard. You can go look at our live stream videos when we discussed these over the past year or so. There was ample time and everyone was given an opportunity to present their concerns. It was recorded in live stream. So we did make sure that there was an opportunity to have that discussion publicly in a live stream format.
Okay, and we have a question from Delegate Kaiser.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Ms. Riley. I guess I do have a question for what you just said about that live streaming. For those who said it wasn't available, I guess that's something you could provide to all of us in the delegation, maybe a link to that. But my question is, I'm all for openness and transparency, so I wanted a greater understanding maybe from your counsel of any legal concerns you have with the video streaming requirements in this bill.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. This is Amanda Kahn. I'm the General Counsel for the Washington Suburban Sanitary Commission. If we have a failure of the technology, the live streaming, can a meeting proceed? And then if it proceeds without live streaming, even though minutes are being taken that comply with the Open Meetings Act, could decisions of WSSC be invalidated in court because live streaming did not occur when it's a statutory requirement? And that's significant. I mean, the WSSC votes on lots of contracts that relate to critical services to both Prince George's County and Montgomery County. We may have a contract expiring for the hauling of our solids out of our Potomac water filtration plant. If the commissioners could not proceed to vote on that contract, then we may have a problem providing that critical service out, for the Potomac water filtration plant. So the meeting should be able to proceed without live streaming in compliance with the Open Meetings Act. Legal issues with the decisions that are made. And the second issue is one of emergency meetings. As you know, we're a utility. Emergency decisions often have to be made when we have significant amount of breaks. Those emergency meetings do comply with the Open Meetings Act, and minutes are taken. Reasonable notice is given in accordance with the act. But if we again had a failure of the video, or not the video conferencing, but the audio conferencing, and emergency decisions had to be made, then that calls into question whether that emergency call can proceed. Same issue, but in a really serious context in an emergency meeting. So that's the General Counsel's legal concerns about that. Thank you.
We had a question from Chair Corman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not sure if this is for the General Manager or the General Counsel, but just looking at the transparency portion of the bill, are you opposed or are you favorable with amendment to the streaming portion of the bill?
As I mentioned before, the challenge that we have with amendments is that we are being literally asked to think about any particular situation. We did indicate to the bill sponsor that we will review thoroughly any amendment that she sends over. And if we see one that can balance our concerns better than the Open Meetings Act can, I think that's something we would certainly take under advisement and ask our commissioners for their position on.
Okay, so let me just say that over the past 3 or 4 years, the General Assembly has adopted streaming legislation related to the State Board of Education, the Interagency Commission on School Construction, the Montgomery County Housing Opportunities Commission, the Public Service Commission, the State Board of Elections, the Maryland Stadium Authority, TEDCO, and numerous other, excuse me, not TEDCO, that is not a web streaming requirement, and numerous other entities, many of which award contracts, many of which do important work. None of which, as I recall, actually opposed the legislation, although they did some had time to have constructive amendments. So I would just encourage you to come up with your list of constructive amendments, because clearly many state agencies and entities regulated by the state are able to comply with this. And in fact, in the era of COVID-19, you yourselves are probably complying with it because you're doing everything visually and web streaming like most organizations are. So I would just say, isn't that so, to make it in the form of a question and see back to the chair of the committee.
Thank you. We have a question from Chairman Barve.
Yeah, thank you. How many emergency meetings do you have during a year?
Mr. Chairman, we don't always have, or I'm sorry, Delegate Barve, we don't always have. We had one last year and then 2 years ago, particularly during the winter season, and the number of breaks continued to decline, and we had to deal with potential loss of pressure. And that was truly an emergency that had to happen very quickly in terms of declaring
Okay.
a state of emergency. So it just depends.
We lost you a little bit there. So, 2 or 3 of these meetings during a year?
I would say maybe one a year, maybe one every other year. But the emergencies are significant. They are not, things that wouldn't affect the public health in terms of water.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Delegate Dumais.
thank you. I actually think this can be handled by amendment, and I'm hoping that instead of just reviewing the amendments, if there's something you don't like, that as Delegate Corman or Chair Corman suggested, that you tell us what needs to be done. Clearly, we can give you the authority to act in an emergency. But aside from that, I have a question about some of the testimony. And again, I don't know the details, but was $1 million contract to rebrand done without live streaming?
No, Delegate, it was not.
Okay, so
I was in part of that
meeting.
meeting, and I will tell you that did not happen.
Okay. All right, well, that was concerning, so that's helpful to know. Thank you. Before I start coughing again.
Are there any other questions? We have any other questions from legislators? All right. Seeing none.
Delegate Resnick.
Delegate Resnick.
Delegate Resnick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick follow-up on those two. Could you provide the delegation a link to that meeting where the $1 million rebranding was discussed?
No, because it didn't actually, there wasn't a discussion of the $1 million rebranding. There was a discussion of rebranding, but it wasn't related to $1 million. And yes, I can provide you with the minutes of that meeting.
Thank
Which
you. Not
comply
the
with
minute.
the Open Meetings Act.
No, the live stream. You said it was live stream. Can you provide the live streaming of that? Hello, Ms. Khan?
I'm sorry, I think I got frozen a little bit.
Okay, I said, could you provide the live, you said it was live streamed. Can you provide the live streaming of that? Is it archived?
It was not live streamed, but there are minutes of that discussion which do comply with the Open Meetings Act.
I do want to point out that Delegate Dumais just asked you if it was live streamed and you said yes. So thank you for clarifying.
No, I said that there was no contract of $1 million related. I just want to clarify that.
Okay, thank you.
There was a discussion.
All right, sounds good. Half this stream is as attorneys and we understand parsing words. The second question I had, never mind, I lost my train of thought, but thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Any other questions from legislators? Seeing none, that concludes the bill hearing, and we will move. Well, that concludes the bill hearing. We'll move on to our next bill, and I'll hand it over to Delegate Charkoudian.
Okay, thank you, Chair Carr. So our next bill is MCPG 101-21, and it's Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission mandatory referral review. And so Delegate Carr, if you want to start us off. Okay. Oh, and I'm sorry, and if we don't have, I think we've got Peggy Dennis already in the room. Yes, okay, so you'll be next. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Good evening, colleagues. For the record, Delegate Al Carr. If this bill looks familiar, it's because it is identical to a bill that we passed unanimously. In our delegation, all 4 delegations actually passed the bill unanimously, and then it passed the House of Delegates during the 2020 shortened session. So mandatory referral, it's the advisory process by which governmental agencies have their projects publicly reviewed by our planning agency. Under current law, the submitting agency can skip the review process after 90 days have elapsed if there is a disagreement over the completeness of the application. And this bill simply closes that loophole and clarifies the process. So this is not specific to any agency or project, but it might help in a healthy collaboration between MNC PPC and MDOT for upcoming projects So I ask for your favorable report, and just this bill is in a posture to be punched through by the wonderful Environment and Transportation Committee. Thank you.
Are there any questions for the bill sponsor? I'm scanning. I see none. So our one person panel for support is Peggy Dennis. If you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and begin.
Hello again. For the record, my name is Peggy Dennis, and I'm testifying for the Legislation Committee of the Montgomery County Civic Federation. The Civic Federation strongly supports Bill MCPG 101-21. It's in the public interest because it increases transparency and improves the important mandatory referral review process. This bill will simply require that agencies, as opposed to private developers, agencies submitting plans to the Commission for Mandatory Referral Review present complete applications before the submission is acted on by the Planning Department. It's hard to believe that this requirement isn't already in place because private developers are required to do this before the development review process begins. Why not public agencies? Not only does the planning staff need to have complete information to do their jobs, it's also important for the public to be able to review the complete submission within the very short 60-day time frame so that residents can provide informed comments and testimony regarding a publicly funded project. We respectfully request a favorable report on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe that's the panel for support. Are there any questions for this witness? I don't see any hands. Thank you very much. And it looks like the opposition is just written. So are there any witnesses that we've missed on this one? Okay, well then I'll hand the gavel back to Chair Carr.
All right, thank you, Madam Vice Chair. So the next bill is MCPG 106-21, Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission, Prince George's County Concrete Batching Plans Setback Requirement requested by Delegate Ivy. And I don't believe we have anyone signed up on this bill. There is written testimony from MNCPPC as well as from the Maryland Building Industry Association. So seeing no witnesses, that concludes the hearing on that bill. And the final bill is MCPG 107-21, Bi-County Agencies, Prince George's County Use and Occupancy Permits, Notice Requirements. This is requested by Delegate Holmes. I don't believe we have anyone present here to testify in this bill. There is written testimony from MNCPPC and from the Maryland Building Industry Association that is informational. So that concludes the Metropolitan Washington Committee's bills, and I'll hand it back over to Chairman Corman.
Thank you, Chair/Vice Chair Carr. Just as a reminder to folks, this night of hearings is the beginning of the process for these bills. All of the committees have work sessions scheduled for the coming weeks that will be available via Zoom and YouTube. And the delegation has a meeting set up for early January for any bills that are ready at that time. And then even bills that pass the delegation still have to go through the regular House process and then the Senate process. So if you have questions, if you have concerns, there's still plenty of time to vet those out. We're back on December 8th for our second night of bill hearings. Thank you again to Rebecca and Joseph for getting us through our technical issues here. Chair Zucker, anything to close us out with?
No, thank you very much, everybody. Have a great night.
All right. Thank you. Good night, everybody. We're adjourned.